Good evening, everyone. Please be seated. Welcome to the council meeting for Watford Borough Council. For those of you watching via the live stream, my name is Councillor Sahil Bashir, and I'm the chairman of Watford Borough Council. Also present today are the Mayor, Peter Taylor, and all other councillors for Watford, and the apologies have been received. We are supported today by Donna Nolan, the Chief Executive, Liam Hornsby, the Monitoring Officer, Toby Campbell, Interim Head of Finance, who is attending on behalf of Nigel Halcutt, the Chief Financial Officer, and other officers. Welcome to COVID Council. Before we begin this evening's meeting, I would like to acknowledge the sad and shocking news of the death of Anne Widdecombe. Anne Widdecombe was a prominent figure in British public life for many decades, serving her constituents and her country with conviction, determination, and a deep commitment to public service. She was a person of strong beliefs who never shied away from debate and who remained committed to the principles she held throughout her long career in public life. Whether people agreed with her views or not, she was widely respected for her willingness to speak her mind and to stand by her convictions. Public service, particularly in elected office, requires individuals to put themselves forward for scrutiny, challenge, and debate in the hope of making a difference to the communities they serve. Anne Widdecombe demonstrated that commitment over many years of service, and her contribution to public and democratic life will be remembered. The circumstances surrounding her death have understandably caused shock and sadness, and our thoughts are with her family, friends, and former colleagues at this difficult time. On behalf of Watford Borough Council, I extend our sincere condolences to all those mourning her loss. I would now like to invite members, officers, and members of the public present to join me in observing a minute's silence as a mark of respect. Thank you. Please be seated. I would like to remind all members to stand when they are invited to speak. If you wish to speak or when I ask you to vote, please raise your hand so that officers that I can see you clearly. We have a very busy agenda, so it would help me to manage the meeting this evening if you indicate at the beginning of each item when asked if you know you would like to speak. Only turn on your microphone when I invite you to speak. When I invite you to speak, it would be appreciated if you do not repeat the comments that have already been made on that item by other members. I need to advise that we are not expecting any fire drills this evening. Therefore, if the alarm sounds, please follow the direction of the Democratic Services lead to my left and leave as quickly as possible and make your way outside via the fire exit and around to the pond where we will gather and check everyone is accounted for. Do not use the lift. If anyone has any difficulty using the stairs, please speak to the Democratic Services lead. Agenda item number 1, apologies for absence. Apologies for absence have been received from Councillors Short and Martins and Ansong. Are there any other apologies? No, thank you very much. No other apologies. Agenda item number 2, disclosure of interest. Do members have any interest if they're on any of the items in tonight's agenda? No. Thank you very much. No conflict of interest. Thank you. Agenda item number 3, the minutes. Do members agree that I sign the minutes of the council held on the 19th of May 2026 as a correct record? All those in favour? All those against? Thank you. The minutes are agreed. Agenda item number 4, official announcements. King's birthday honours. On behalf of the council, I would like to congratulate the following individuals from Watford and the surrounding area who have been awarded an honour in the King's birthday honours. Dr. Ursula Devalia, OBE, President of the British Society of Paediatric Dentistry. Kerry McCafferty, MBE, Chief People Officer, St Mungo's. Pauline Odbert, BEM, Volunteer Store Manager, New Hope. Dr. Niall Keenan, OBE, West Hart Teaching Hospital, NHS Trust. Training. Members are reminded to complete mandatory ICT training. This training must be completed to enable everyone to understand the risks to the council's network. It is up to all of us to remain vigilant and protect the council's network. If you are unsure how to access it, contact Democratic Services Lead. My events. Last weekend, I climbed Mount Snowdon to raise funds for one of my charities, Hayat Welfare Trust. I would like to thank all of those that joined me on the climb, especially Councillor Asif Khan and his son Sulaiman Khan. I would also like to thank all colleagues for making donations and contributions to my charitable page. So far, £7,000 has been raised for one of my charities. Before moving on to the next agenda item, I'm going to be bringing forward agenda item number 8 before we turn to the mayor's report. The council has received a petition with the requisite number of signatures. It has been printed in the agenda. Mr. Charlie Swan is with us this evening to present the petition. The procedure will be as follows. Mr. Swan, you will have up to 5 minutes to present the petition. Do you want to join us, Mr. Swan? Yeah. So, Mr. Swan, you will have up to 5 minutes to present the petition. After this, members will have 15 minutes to debate it. I will then ask Mayor Taylor to formally respond. He will have up to 3 minutes. Mr. Swan, if you would like to come forward to the microphone, you have 5 minutes, please.
Hello, good evening. My name is Charlie Swan. I am the lead organiser of the campaign to protect Watford Skate Park at Lower Derby Road. When I was first finding my way through life as a teenager, my world came crashing down. My father took his own life. Home became difficult, tensions were high, grief affected everyone differently, and I felt I had nowhere to go and nobody who I could properly turn to. Watford Skate Park became my escape. It gave somewhere to breathe, somewhere to belong, and people who accepted me without needing an explanation. At a point when everything felt unstable, the skate park became the one constant I could rely on. It became my community, my support network, and in many ways, the place that kept me going. My story is not unique. For many young people, skate parks become the place that they call home, when home is too difficult for them to be. Sometimes organised sport isn't for them, paid activities are unaffordable, or they simply have nowhere else where they feel seen. That is why a dedicated skate park matters. It's not merely a collection of ramps that can be placed inside a family park and considered replaced. A dedicated skate park gives teenagers and young adults somewhere that genuinely belongs to them, rather than somewhere that they are tolerated, provided they stay quiet and keep out the way and fit around everyone else. More than 900 people have supported this campaign. Our objective is clear. We're asking the council to abandon the housing proposal for Lower Derby Road and protect the skate park as an asset of community value. That does not mean we oppose housing. It means we oppose sacrificing this particular community space when other options exist, and its loss would be permanent. I'm not here to attack Oxley Activity Park either. Oxley is a popular place and attracts people from Watford and beyond. However, its success is exactly why Watford still needs Lower Derby Road. Oxley combines skateboarders, BMX riders, scooter riders and inline skaters with pedestrians, families and very young children. People regularly cross active riding lines, and I've personally witnessed accidents and near misses caused by that layout. That's not criticism of the people using Oxley. It's a limitation of trying to make an open plan park and serve everybody at once. Lower Derby Road serves a different purpose. It's contained, dedicated, and has its own community and identity. Keeping it would relieve pressure on Oxley and protect a free town centre space for teenagers and young adults who are regularly pushed out of other public spaces. The council calls Lower Derby Road redundant and surplus, but it did not become unused because people stopped needing it. The council closed the path, locked the gates and withdrew public access. Despite it remaining officially closed, more than 50 people attended our community skate jam, a supposedly redundant facility attracting that level of use while closed is a curious definition of surplus. This also sits within a wider pattern. The council discontinued its direct youth service provision, while traditional youth service spaces steadily reduced. Its own consultation with 842 young people found that their most common after-school activity was meeting with friends and spending time together. Its own strategy recommended more town centre places where young people could gather. Nearly 20 years later, we're discussing removing another one. Young people are told not to stay indoors, not to loiter and not to get into trouble, while free places available to them keep disappearing. The council cannot keep removing spaces where young people can exist and then act surprised when they exist somewhere less convenient for them. Watford needs housing, but a car-free town centre also needs recreation, culture, community and free spaces within walking distance. The council's figures identify a 5-year requirement of 4,190 homes and a deliverable supply of 4,557. Lower Derby Road accounts for 59. Even without those 59, the published supply remains above the 5-year requirement. So for the record, I ask the council to abandon the housing proposal and pause the marketing and disposal of Lower Derby Road while its nomination as an asset of community value is determined, publish the evidence that Watford no longer needs a second dedicated skate park, including demand capacity, safety incidents and existing youth provision. Publish details of any targeted consultation with young people and former Lower Derby Road users. Publish what alternatives were considered, including delivering the homes elsewhere, retaining the skate park alongside a smaller development, separating it from wider site or offering the community a lease, and make no irreversible commitment to develop until those options and the asset of community value nomination have been properly considered. More than 900 people have asked you to protect this space, abandon the housing proposal, pause the sale, protect Lower Derby Road as an asset of community value, give this community a fair chance to keep it alive. Thank you.
Please remain there if you wish to. We now move on to the member debate, which is for a maximum of 15 minutes. Does any member wish to speak on this debate? The following members have indicated they wish to ask questions. Councillor Silva? Yes. Councillor Clark Taylor? Councillor Glenn Saffery? Councillor Nigel Bell? Councillor Jack Dinza? And Councillor Page? And Councillor Pattinson? Callum? And those three? Anybody else? Have I missed anybody? So thank you. We have a minute each, effectively, just for each member to speak or debate on this. So I'm going to turn to Councillor Silva first. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say it's fantastic to see some young people engaging in the democratic process. I've got myself very, very young, having been involved in protests very soon as a teenager. I also want to say I grew up in Watford. I used the skate park as a kid. I completely see so many of the points that you make. In fact, in our group debate, I spoke about the need for older young people to have activities because clearly it's not always appropriate for older teenagers to be mixing with younger. However, the Oxford Activity Park is a fantastic venue. it's not the only thing that this council does for young people. Whippy trails, I think it's been a really positive thing. I mean, aside from that, it's a massive upgrade in stuff we used to dig as teenagers. And that's really, really strong aspect. The Young People Centre near the fire station, King George's playing fields, various events that are being run there over the summer are a massive step forward compared to many local authorities, not in Hertfordshire, but across the wider region. Watford Fringe, live music in the town centre, Market Lakes. I could go on, however, it wasn't fully actually your point, concerns. I accept and agree with much of what you said. In a perfect world, I think we would want to keep everything that we have and have more. The reality is, many young people will leave houses in years to come. Having grown up here, I've not been able to afford to buy a house. I found housing very difficult to come by, and I wanted to stay in the town I love, I grew up in.
Thank you, Vince. Just about to be over. Thanks.
Ultimately, I think we need to make decisions, that hard choices now to safeguard the young people for years to come, even when it is a hard choice.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Clark-Taylor, please.
Thank you, Chair. And first of all, my sincere condolences to Mr. Swan for the early loss of his father. I just wanted to stand up as one of the councillors for Oxley Ward and just raise a couple of points on this. Obviously, the wording of the motion before us tonight is different to the wording of the change.org petition, which I've looked at, and I'm really quite concerned about sort of claims of health and safety issues and things like that. And obviously, if you are aware of those, please do engage with us as the ward councillors and Councillor Williams as the representative of Parks. We do want to engage constructively with people who do have concerns in case there is anything we can do to alleviate that. And just picking up on your idea of, it's important for people to have a place of belonging. When my daughter was unlawfully kicked out of school and had nowhere to go and we were waiting for a new school, Oxley Activity Park did become her home. When I took her in the daytime because she didn't have a school to go to, I loved it when the young skaters helped her and she was on the top of a ramp and they would help her when she was so scared and they would cheer with her when she got down. So just to say, you guys are really, really welcome to come. I know you're saying it's not just your thing, but as a local parent, as well as a local councillor, we really do appreciate your input in actually helping and supporting more young people coming through and getting into sport, because it's meant a lot to my family anyway.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clark-Taylor. Councillor Saffery, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I echo my colleagues' condolences on your loss. I'll just add to those, and it's very well put there, so I'm not going to go on about the same things, but on the planning aspects of this, the local plan was very extensively consulted on, and you are required to demonstrate a 5-year land supply. If you go back to the drawing board on that, you open yourselves up to speculative development in other parts of the town. This is a very sustainable site. It is close to a train station. It's very close to the high street. And as Councillor Silver has mentioned, I think we're probably of the same generation. I remember the skate park being open, and it's been a really valuable asset. Unfortunately, the other thing we hear from people of our generation constantly in Watford is can't get on the housing ladder. There's not enough housing. This is an excellent site for first starter homes for young people, younger people. I'm not so young anymore, but younger people like ourselves, and that has to weigh very heavily into the balance on these decisions. And I totally sympathise with you. I've been through loss and things as a youngster. I know kind of where you're coming from. But these are the sorts of decisions that we have to make as politicians, and it's very, very difficult sometimes. But there are huge merits to this site that will benefit younger people in the future as well.
Thank you, Councillor Saffery. Councillor Nigel Bell, please.
Thank you, Chair, and well done, Charlie, for what you said tonight, and obviously your loss is a father. And while it may be beyond becoming a community asset, I don't know exactly, but I think it's important to recognise that many young people in the Central Ward and beyond are disappointed about the decision to close the skate park and close the area down. Now, there may be these skate park facilities that we've built, nice modern skate park in Oxley Park, and I've heard what Councillor Clark-Taylor said and others. But it is important to recognise the feeling of belonging that those who continue to use the other side, and many of them are here, to dismiss their views and concerns would be wrong. And I think that's what trying to understand tonight, and a sign of not listening to a section of Watford young people. So I just had the question that I did ask at the Cabinet when you all took the decision, I think unanimously, to confirm the closure. Can you assure these and other young people that the money received that you get will go towards youth facilities in the future?
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hill, please.
Thank you, and particularly thank you to Charlie for sharing your personal story this evening. The skate park at Lower Derby Road was closed by the council around 5 years ago when Oxford Skate Park was opened. Oxford Activity Park includes a new skate park which had huge investment obviously by the council. The council agreed to keep Lower Derby Road open for about 6 months to ensure a more natural progression from one facility to the other, but it was always planned to close after Oxford Activity Park opened. I do think that shows a clear support for skaters in the town, and just having worked with Peter for the last couple of years, just more widely about provision for young people in this town. One of the things in Park Road where I'm a councillor, the basketball court, which is so well used by the young people that come through there, and that for me is a really fantastic thing to see in our community. I do just want to touch on some of the misinformation that I've seen in the public sphere in the last few days. There wasn't ever a licence given to the event that took place there by the councils that wasn't supported by the council. Since its closure, we have tried as a council to undertake our due diligence on the site and make sure it is secure. The site hasn't been sold yet, and we do expect that sale will take somewhere between 6 to 18 months. And I just think it has a bit disappointing that misinformation really being circulated online. Our local plan was adopted in 2022, and it has been identified as a possible site for housing. The recommendation for disposal only came to a recent cabinet meeting, and that's a normal process for us to follow when discussing things like this. And I do want to just echo what some of my colleagues have said, that we do understand the huge amount of feeling, but I think it does overlook what this council has done for Watford as a town and for young people. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Pattinson, please.
Thank you, Chair. And firstly, thank you, Charlie. And I want to thank everybody who signed the petition and everyone who's taken the time to speak up. The number of signatures demonstrates really that this is an issue that people care deeply about and a passion for our town. And its facilities is something that I genuinely welcome. And I also understand why people are terribly disappointed by this decision. Nobody likes to see a place that they've enjoyed and built memories in change. And if there was not a brilliant new large skate park facility less than a mile away, I think I would have felt very differently about this decision. On a personal note, I have a good understanding of these facilities. My own 15-year-old son is a keen skateboarder and uses the new Oxley Activity Park regularly as part of his general practice. He's also built a community there, as you described, Charlie, and it is a very welcoming community, the skateboarding community. And I'd like to thank everybody that has supported my son in his practice. But like many experienced skaters, he knows how to use the facilities responsibly. He chooses quieter times and makes use of the areas designed for older children and adults, leaving plenty of space for younger families. As councillors, we have to make very difficult decisions that balance a wide range of competing needs, and that isn't easy. And hearing you speak so passionately makes some of those decisions feel even more personal and even more difficult to make. But one of those competing issues is housing, and as a housing portfolio holder, it wouldn't be right for me not to acknowledge that Watford faces significant pressures providing homes for local people, particularly affordable homes. This site forms part of our local plan, which has been independently examined. And I can't ignore the fact that we have families waiting for homes, young people who cannot afford to stay in the town where they grew up, and an increasing demand for temporary accommodation. At the same time, we've not turned our backs on younger people. So this is not a choice between housing and younger people. It's about finding the right balance between providing homes for our residents that desperately need them while continuing to invest in excellent recreational facilities across Watford. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pattinson. Councillor Jack Bardinson.
Yeah, Chair, as you said, I don't want to repeat the points that have been made, so the points I wanted to make have been covered. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dinser. Councillor Callum Robertson, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's true that for the first time in history, and I say this with painful awareness of the youngest council in the room, and I believe the youngest council in Hertfordshire, the dream of home ownership is outrage for millions upon millions of young people. On its face, I do appreciate it does look like we are sort of taking away an opportunity for young people, but the council is very aware that sometimes we have to make decisions to make people disappointed and sometimes even angry. That's a reality of politics in life. However, every decision this administration takes is one with the best intention of the community at heart. The driving force behind this decision is the recognition that, bluntly, we're in a housing crisis. The only way out of that housing crisis is to build more homes, and a brownfield development site identified in the local plan is the best place to build.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Stewart.
Again, thanks very much for the speech. It was excellent. I'm not a skater anymore, but I used to be a skater as a kid. I used to spend a lot of time on South Bank in Waterloo. And I just want to pick up on one of the things you said, which was the theme of that skate park compared to offsetting. I totally get your point. I understand totally where you're coming from. I really do feel the struggle. I won't reiterate all the conversations around housing, but what I would say is, please do not consider this a shut door. We'd love to work with you in terms of how we can make Offset Activity Park work better for you. We'd love to be an olive branch. So, I do stand by the decision to build more houses in Watford. I would also just say, I used to live in South East London, in Bromley. I had to travel all the way up into London to get to a park a bit like the one that you're defending today. So I feel your pain, I really do understand. But again, that long-term plan of housing, it really is, it's a mountain, and every single part of it is important. So thanks for your time, I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Stokesbury. And
I'm really sorry, I have one final point.
yes.
So Councillor Bell did mention about funding that ever came forward from that would be spent on new services. I mean, it would be subject to still funding, so indeed that would be part of a core part of the response. So yes.
Thank you, Councillor Stokesbury. And with the other members, I'm going to now turn to the Mayor to respond on behalf of the Council, please.
Thank you, Councillor Sheehan. Thank you, Charlie, for bringing it forward and for sharing your post experience. As others have said, you talk about your loss. It does move us, and we do recognise the importance of community. One of the things that it was interesting to hear a number of members talk about their own post experience related to skating, and actually we've got Councillor Denton's come as a skateboard, I think, this evening. But on a serious note, I was just going to say a few things. First of all, when we developed Oxford Activity Park, I was the portfolio holder that's now to William's house, and we worked with the skateboarding community really closely on developing that site to making sure it wasn't just council officers or councillors who decided what went there, but actually it met the demands of skaters themselves. I know that there's been some feedback that it could be better, which Councillor Taylor mentioned. I'll very happily work with skaters to say all the improvements we can make to Oxford Activity Park to make it a better, an even better facility for those people who use it. A number of people have raised, I think Councillor Bell talked about, are you going to spend the money on youth services later on? Watford Council is not responsible for youth services, but I think the broader point about sport and parks and green spaces, we have clearly made that a priority for us. Later on in this, even we talk about our council plan, it talks about lots of things we want to invest in, better basketball facilities, for example, better cricket, but more green flag parks. Councillor Silver mentioned things like the bike trail in Wickham Downward. So we're going to continue providing free swimming, free gym, lots and lots of things for young people. We recognise how important that is. But a number of people have made the point about the pressure that we face. As the mayor, one of the things that breaks my heart is when I drive up to this town hall and I see families arriving at the town hall with their young children and their suitcases to tell our officers that they are homeless and they need somewhere to live. And we have 250 families currently in temporary accommodation. We can't ignore the fact we have a housing crisis. I think morally we have a responsibility to build. I know that sometimes that means really, really difficult things, but we consulted very widely on our local plan. There's never any hiding the fact that this was part of our local plan. When it came to voting on it, I would just remind Labour members, they didn't bring forward an amendment to take this out. They didn't vote against that local plan. We agreed as a town, we need to build more houses, we need the infrastructure, we need them to be affordable so we can respond to it. So I know it's not easy. We're going to continue everything we can to make sure we've got the best possible facilities. We also recognise our moral obligation to build affordable houses for local families.
Thank you. I would like to thank Mr. Swan for coming to the council and presenting the petition. A written response will be sent to you and it will be published on the council's website. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. We can carry on with the rest of the our business. So with agenda item number 5, the mayor's report. So we'll both just wait for one moment.
Cheers. Fucking hell, that was a shot. Right.
Okay, thank you. So, agenda item number 5, the mayor's report. Report the mayor is attached to the agenda. Please can you raise your hand if you wish to ask a question of the mayor. I'll then make a note of all members who wish to ask a question and read it out to make sure I have everyone who has indicated. So please raise your hand if you wish to speak. Councillor Carroll. Anybody else? No. Okay. So Councillor Khan and Councillor Tim Williams are the only two people. I now invite Mayor to present his report, please.
Thank you, Councillor Shear. As ever, very happy to answer any questions on the report or anything else that members wish to raise.
Okay. Councillor Khan, you have 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we mentioned at the beginning the murder of Anne Widdicombe, which is shocking and must be condemned unequivocally by everybody, regardless of political party or political differences. Our thoughts should be with, as the Chairman mentioned, the family and friends and her colleagues. Those of us in public life accept scrutiny, we accept challenge, we accept disagreement, as the first agenda item discussed, but increasingly political debate is becoming personal, abusive, and sometimes threatening. In the recent local election, I myself was subject to verbal attacks. And Councillor Bell, right in front of me, also was, and so it was referred back to the returning officer, as have other councillors from other parties as well. Whilst this cannot be compared with the appalling murder taking place of a life, it's part of a wider deterioration. I think it's important to just very, very quickly. Strong disagreement is part of democracy. Hatred and intimidation and dehumanising language are not. Let me come to the question. I think sometimes. Yeah. So will the elected mayor join me in condemning this murder and commit to working with all political groups to promote civility, respect and responsible language in what this political debate generally it is, and both in this chamber, outside and online?
Thank you, Councillor Khan, for raising that. I think it's a really important issue, and I'm glad that you've raised it this evening. I actually met Anne Widdicombe a number of times in my previous job, share of faith, but a very different political outlook. And she was someone who was kind-hearted, very friendly person, even though, as I say, I disagreed with her on much. And it has been truly shocking and saddening to see what's happening. And we hope, of course, the police investigation bears fruit. I think the broader point about the kind of society we're living in and the type of political debate is a really important one. We see it online, we see it when we're out, increasingly kind of hostile and aggressive behaviour. I think all of us need to reflect on how we respond to that. I know that a lot of it actually comes down to government approaches to things like algorithms and online as well do affect it. I know that the Local Government Association with their Debate Not Hate campaign, which I've encouraged members to get involved with, and take this matter really seriously. I'm grateful to him for raising it. I'm sorry to hear about the issues that he and Councillor Bell have endured, but I think all of us reflect on that and want to work to create a society where there's, of course, open, robust political debate, but we don't see it crossing that line and getting into acts of aggression and violence.
Thank you, Mr. Councillor Tim Williams, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know that this matter was embargoed until today, no doubt didn't make the Mayor's report. Isn't it great that Watford has retained all 17 green flags for its parks and open spaces? By far in hearts. Isn't it great also that Watford will be hosting this year's Hertfordshire Green Flag Awards on Friday? And it'll be great next year to be awarded 18 green flags for Watford as we are entering natural playing fields as per your manifesto said. Whilst on my feet, a great big thanks to all those involved with Watford Parks and Open Spaces. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Of course, I agree with everything you said. I would add my thanks to you as the portfolio holder for helping us to achieve those 17 green flags on with the friends groups. We even had a Baroness picking litter in the obviously Mark, I think, a few weeks ago. So a big thank you to all of those involved today. If you do ever come across councillors from Three Rivers or St Albans, do feel free to tell them we've got twice as many green flag marks, so they always appreciate that insight. And I know that officers are really excited about the prospect of increasing it to 18, and we're looking forward to helping us achieve that. So thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 6, questions by members of the council. No written questions have been received. Agenda item number 7, questions by members of the public. A question has been received from Mr. Horrific Ditani and is included on the agenda. Mr. Ditani is here this evening. I'd just like to remind members of the procedure. I will invite Mr. Ditani to put his question, which will then be answered by the Mayor. Once the question has been asked and an answer given, Mr. Ditani may, at my discretion, ask a supplementary question, but only if that question is to seek clarification of the reply and not a new matter. There will be no debate following the question and answer. I will now ask Mr. Ditani to come over and put his question, please.
Thank you, Chair. Sir, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, Chair, and good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Ritik Tani, and I'm here on behalf of my father, whose health is not quite well. And for the past couple of months, me and my family are facing noise complaint issues with our neighbours. Whilst we all are happy for people to increase the size of the homes, I think there needs to be respect for the hours that the council permits. Works commenced on the Easter bank holidays, and till date, works commencing till 8 p.m. on Saturdays, 10 p.m. on weekdays. Now, when this was first reported to the council, I was met with a very bureaucratic response, and not something which I was expecting. And may I please state on record that me and my family are very grateful to the mayor for getting involved in this. He's been very helpful and always has been. So essentially, my question is, why does Watford Council not have an out-of-hours service? Because when there's an out-of-hours service, someone can come to the place, assess it, and deal with it. Me and my family used to live in Brent. They used to have that service. You call the council, someone, an officer attends, and it's dealt with. We've not only dealt with noise, there's been fires, dust, all sorts of stuff, and we've not had the best experience with Watford Council. Even despite the mayor's involvement, these issues have been ongoing, so that is why I'm here to put to council. Can the council please consider introducing an out-of-hours service? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ditani. I'll turn to Mr. Mayor to answer that question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Ditani, and I wish your father well. Please do pass on our best wishes to him, and thank you for raising this. So I've got a prepared statement which I'll read out to you. The council fully recognises that some noise nuisance issues can occur outside normal office hours and appreciates the impact the persistent disturbance can have on residents' quality of life. The council does not currently operate a reactive, on-call, out-of-hours environmental health service. This is informed by the very low level of demand for an emergency out-of-hours attendance. Historic records show that only a very small number of incidents require officer attendance outside normal working hours. So just for the record, in 22 to 23 and in 23-24, we had 3 incidents across that period, with most reports being non-urgent in nature and capable of being effectively investigated during standard service hours. Importantly, the absence of a reactive out-of-hours service does not prevent the council from investigating and taking action on noise nuisance. Where complaints are persistent or reoccurring, officers will work with residents to gather evidence, including the use of diary sheets and other monitoring methods, to establish patterns of disturbance. Officers can then arrange planned visits outside normal office hours, where this is necessary to witness the alleged nuisance and gather evidence to support enforcement action. This targeted approach ensures resources are focused on cases where intervention is most likely to be effective. Where sufficient evidence identifies a likely source of noise, such as a business, contractor, or construction activity, officers will proactively engage with those responsible, reminding them of legal requirements and permitted working hours, and, where appropriate, using the council's statutory powers to resolve the issue. Like councils across the country, Watford must balance service provision against resources available. Local government has faced significant financial pressure over many years, requiring difficult choices about priorities. We all know that the funding we received from central government over a 10-year period was cut by 50% in real terms, which was the cause of that original decision. Given the historically low level of demand for reactive out-of-hours response and the available of alternative investigation methods, the council's current approach has been to focus resources on planned, evidence-led interventions that deliver the greatest benefit for residents. The council keeps service arrangements under review as part of its normal budget and service planning processes. Should demand increase significantly or should evidence emerge that current arrangements are no longer meeting residents' needs, the case for alternative service models would be considered alongside other competing priorities and available resources. I would just say, I think you're a resident of Three Rivers, possibly. As we go through, and I'm sure we'll pick up maybe later in this meeting, of course, we've got a period where we're going to be merging with local authorities, so this will be one of those issues that we look at, the standard of service that's provided by those other councils that we're merging with, and of course we'll be reviewing that in years ahead.
Sorry, just to clarify, I am a resident of Watford.
Oh, sorry, apologies.
So I live on Meadowbank and resident of Oxley. I do have a
Thank
very
you.
quick supplementary question, if I may, Chair.
Is it a clarification of
Yes.
what the Mayor has said?
Yes, on a statement.
Yes.
I'll put the question to you. You can, of course, decide at your discretion. Not to challenge you, Mr. Mayor, on what you've said, I do not have any intention. You said that the council can arrange a out-of-hours visit where necessary. Given the fact that the works commenced on the Easter bank holiday, until date, as I'm sure you can appreciate from your office, my father has been emailing you. No visit has been arranged, and I do not feel that service, which has been described, or the council has been using the appropriate powers. Had it been using it, then this should not have been continued for such an extended period. But it's got to a time where it's very embarrassing to keep emailing you about this. I appreciate you have a lot of matters, so being selfish, but could this please be looked into, because it's really frustrating for me and my family. At least on the weekend, we expect some sort of peace. So if I may please clarify on that, Chair.
Yes, I'm happy. I've taken the
Thank
advice
you.
to answer clarification.
Yeah, very happy to answer that, and thank you for raising it. First thing I say is never feel embarrassed to email me, because we will always make sure you get a response and look into the issues that are being raised. I'm very happy to discuss that with officers about the level of, how we respond when there are issues out of hours. We always reflect on these cases to say what are the lessons that we've learned, what could we be doing differently. But we have got to be honest about the financial pressures we face. When we some years we're having to make very significant reductions in our spending because of that reduction in government funding, and so we had to prioritise resources. When we had a service previously where we were only having 3 incidents a year, that was what caused us to review the service provision. But I will very happily discuss with officers the issue that you've raised and see if there's anything else we can do to support you. But as I say, the main thing is never feel embarrassed to email me. Always very happy to get an email from an Oxley resident or anybody who lives in any ward in the town.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Tony, for attending.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Chair. Good evening.
Thank you.
Well done.
Okay, moving on to agenda item number 9, urgent business. There is no urgent business. Agenda item number 10, Council Plan and Delivery Plan 2026 to 2028. So a report of Cabinet from its meeting on the 1st of June and the officer's report presented at that meeting have been circulated with the agenda. I'm inviting Mayor Taylor to move the recommendation in the report. You have up to 7 minutes. Item 10.
Oh, the council plan.
Yes.
Sorry, just speaking the council plan. Okay, 7 minutes. I won't take 7 minutes. The first thing I want to say is a massive thank you to officers for their work getting this council plan produced so quickly. For some of us, it doesn't feel like that long ago since we were facing elections at the start of May. And to have a situation where I'm re-elected, many of you are re-elected, or newly elected, and then within a matter of weeks, we have turned all the commitments that I made to Watford residents into a council plan with the deeds about who's responsible, how we're going to deliver it over the next 2 years, is very impressive. Some councils still haven't decided who their council leader is after the last elections, and we're in a position where we've got this published council plan. This is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to implement it. We all know that many people have got ever decreasing levels of trust in politicians. I think one of the reasons for that is that they feel that politicians say one thing and then don't follow through. We've been always very clear over the last 2 mayoral terms that where we've made commitments, be it on barrel bikes or in making Watford more dementia friendly, all of these things we have then followed through and delivered on it. We've also got a very transparent process where it comes to Cabinet and to Open Scrutiny Committee to say, this is the progress we've made, these are the ones that are on track, these are the ones where there's problems, these are the ones that have already been delivered. We're building on quite strong foundations. So as Councillor Williams mentioned, the council plan talks about increasing the number of green flag parks to 18 and making our playgrounds more accessible, introducing more basketball facilities, better cricket facilities, a winter ice rink in the town centre that our officers are working hard on, planting ever more trees, more water fountains, cleaning up the river, making buildings like the one we can see through that window, central leisure centre, more energy efficient. And we're also making sure we keep our residents safe by expanding our CCTV network. We've got 300 cameras that are monitored every night and every day, funded by Watford Council. We want to expand that network. We're also making sure that our businesses thrive, investing in local parades. We can see the work on the Hornish Directory, Vicarage Road already started, and things like the Hertfordshire Film Festival, TV and Film Festival that we have plans to deliver. So there's lots of really positive things. We all know that officers are working hard on local government reorganisation. We'll hear what the government plans this week, but I'm really conscious that of course we're going to make the best of that, but that doesn't stop the work we have of getting on delivering as Watford Council. And so this council plan sets out a really ambitious plan of investing in things that really matter to our residents, and also at a time when many families struggle with bills, making sure that actually Watford's share of council tax, which was frozen this year, never increases by more than inflation. So I hope that you welcome this council plan and can support it this evening.
Thank you. May I have a seconder, please? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Chair. I second this delivery plan and reserve my right to speak now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any other members who wish to speak on this report? Councillor Shaw. Anybody else? No? Councillor Bell. Yeah, anybody else? Okay, we have 3 members, so we'll start with Councillor Sharp, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I suppose this is likely to be the last plan we have. And as perhaps the only person in the chamber that was here when we first started producing plans like this, I both feel a little bit nostalgic and also think it is perhaps worth marking the moment. What we had to deal with back when we started engaging with this process was going from a council that had an unwieldy number of priorities with no clear sort of sense of how to deliver them, in having clearly defined objectives and actually being clear about what we considered important, what we were aiming to achieve, what our vision was from the town, and how we were going to deliver it and how we were going to measure whether we had delivered it or not. And I think that has been a successful process over 2.5 decades now. It's something that has delivered concrete improvements, whether literally so, as we see in the ramps in Oxley Park, and a variety of things, new leisure centres, variety of new facilities, improvements in the town centre, and much more besides, 17 green flag parks, of course, all through planning and delivering, rather than just hoping that things will happen. And it is very good to see that we are going out on a high with a plan for an additional green flag park, and I think Knutsford is a very good choice there. It's certainly deserved. It's got the ability, it's got the landscape potential to be that, but also that we're continuing to try and deliver more housing. We're trying to bring back the Croxley, the old Croxley line back into use. We're moving forward with that, trying to achieve, the hospital, and a vision for making the best of what Watford has. And I hope we have, this has been a positive process. I hope somehow or other this will not be lost when we move into a new authority, and the new authority will learn from the approach that we have taken so that Watford can continue to thrive in that environment, and possibly that other neighbouring areas can derive benefit too from the way that we have set about setting priorities, delivering plans over many years.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Councillor Bell, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, certainly support a lot of things in here. I'm sure we can support across parties. I'll note a safe and clean town. And you've mentioned in there something about 300 CCTV cameras, which obviously is a good thing. But I do know that there are many residents, certainly in my area in West Watford, who are concerned about the increasing number of fly tipping. And a lot of people do feel that fly tipping, certainly in West Watford, has got worse in the last couple of years. And I've had that, I don't want to mention officers' name, but even officers have told me that. So without having CCTV cameras, particularly in Rosewood near where I live, but also in other parts of West Watford and Vicarage Ward, many residents feel there's not proper deterrent against that fly tipping. And I know that obviously Councillor Williams will know there's a campaign at the moment, but a lot of residents in West Watford don't feel that's really got going. So we do really need to see action on that. And then I will talk about, obviously we talked about and we supported in the budget in January, the extra environment climate stuff. And that's good, but I think with all the issues in the town, we may even need a third environment climate officer, because I'm always loath to mention a particular officer's name, but I think it's right. I don't mind mentioning Tony Minotta here, because Tony is fantastic. He's always been efficient, but he can't do everything, you know what I mean? We haven't got the stage where old Tony Minotta's running everywhere, doing abandoned cars, fly tipping, fines, whatever. And I know that you can employ someone else, but with the situation we've got, not just in West Watford, but other parts of the town, I think we support, even if you could try and somehow get someone else to help him and more resources. As I say, that fly tipping is a big issue, and I know fair enough, you made a big issue in the election about fly tipping and put it down the end. But certainly in West Watford, and that's across party, a lot of people are not happy about the state of West Watford and the fly tipping around beans, etc. And I know Councillor Williams knows about that. More community police officers, pleased to see that. I remember the days when, I think it was Councillor Sharp's wife many years ago, I think you weren't in favour, or not in favour of paying for the community police support officers, but that was, what, 20 years ago now. So, I mean, if we get more properly trained community police support officers, then fine, and that's good. And I know we've got a very good one, or a couple of very good ones in West Watford again, which that's a good thing. Safe and clean town, yeah, that's linked to all this, but more CCTV, as I say, in the town. Water fountains, that's a good thing, because I remember my former colleague, Asma Sullivan, Councillor Sullivan in Hollywood, I think she kept going on about that. She'll be pleased to hear that. But overall, yes, we support a lot of the issues and a lot of the things you've said here, and certainly on the White Ribbon organisation, that's good, and we all came together on that. Councillor Favour's motion, I remember your motion a few years ago, and you followed up on that, and that's fine, and we'll obviously be very pleased on the White Ribbon accreditation. So, yeah, well, obviously we support a lot of things in here, so, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I remember when Councillor Sharp was running the planning operation, and we were summoned regularly to detailed presentations from officers going through every piece of the plan. And it was a damn good plan, and it was done very well. And I think it served us very well. So thank you, Ian, for all you did in the past. And I think picking up your theme, I think it sort of sets the tone for Watford, that we do things well and that we stick by them. And I think that will take the Mayor's manifesto just as well as to the council plan. So a couple of comments. One is recognition of delight that the playgrounds will be made more inclusive. Again, some of us around here long enough to know that we started off on the journey making the playgrounds fit to be used. Well, they're getting tired. Let's be honest, they've been almost 18, 20 years in use. So when we get to renovate them, they must be made more available for more people. Absolutely. And finally, just a sad reflection. the life of this plan will be short. I just hope that the successful authority will listen and read what it says and adopt it. It is so important that Watford's identity is retained in some future authority, whatever that might be. And that is my biggest fear, actually, that so much of this good work will not continue in the future.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just say a couple of things because colleagues have mentioned most of the good things that are within the council plan. I think what I would like to say is that the proposed council plan does set an ambitious delivery programme, and we have to put that in the light of local government organisation and acknowledge and understand that officers are under immense pressure to deliver both the council plan and the pressures that local government reorganisation will need of our time. And you're right, Councillor Bell, that fly tipping is an issue within the town, and that is why the plan includes an additional environmental crime officer, and we hope that by increasing that facility, we will have additional capacity to be able to tackle that more effectively. The delivery plan for this 2 years is an ambitious one, but it does leave a lasting legacy for the council. And when the council finally disappears into 2028, I think we should all be proud of what we've delivered over the last 6 years of the time that I've been a councillor and the many years that they've run this council. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. And Mayor Taylor, right, would like to.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thanks everyone for the points that you've made. Just a couple of things I think it's worth going back on. So you would not be surprised that we can't resist the temptation to just very briefly talk about fly tipping and all the work that we're doing. Of course, we've massively increased the fine. If you look across Hertfordshire, we have the most enforcement, the highest level of enforcement. We're increasing that. If you want to compare councils across the county, who has the highest number of recorded fly tips in Hertfordshire, it's Labour-run Stevenage, of course, topping that league. So we worked hard on addressing these issues. It was good that Councillor Bell mentioned the election, though he seemed a little bit bitter when he did. Now, we are going to make sure we go on delivering these really important things. I would just like to pick up on the point that I think Councillor Watkin and Councillor Sharp both made about successor authorities. I take on board entirely your point about it's important that we don't lose that sense. I think Watford's best attribute as a council is this can-do attitude of its officers and members, that we roll up our sleeves, we get on with things. And all I would say is that the new councils that we have in the future, there will be many, hopefully, people in this room who will be there both as members and officers, and I think it's important, and I know that many of us want to shape that new unitary and make sure that it's also a council that delivers the very best for residents and businesses, whatever footprint it covers. So I'm sure we will do our best to do that, but I look forward to implementing the commitments that we've made in this council plan.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. That concludes the debate, so I'm going to move to vote. Does the council agree the recommendation to approve the council and delivery plan 2026 to 2028? All those in favour, please show your hands. All those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Thank you. The recommendation is carried. Thank you. Moving on, agenda item 11, Financial Monitoring Report 2025-26, year end. So, report of the Chief Finance Officer and minutes from the Finance Scrutiny Committee on the 22nd of June have been circulated with the agenda, and the minutes from the Cabinet on the 1st of July have been circulated to all members by email and published online. I'm inviting Councillor Begum to move the recommendations. You have up to 7 minutes, Councillor Begum.
Thank you very much, Chair. I will not take 7 minutes. Really pleased to bring forward the financial monitoring report for the year 25-26 year end. And I guess I'd just like to start off by saying that Watford Borough Council remains financially resilient, supported by strong reserve balances and good financial control. This provides a firm foundation from which we can continue to manage our resources responsibly, invest in our priorities that the Mayor has talked to about earlier, and deliver great services that matter to our residents. I'll just mention a couple of things in the report from a revenue and capital outturn perspective. There is a provisional outturn of 0.774 million overspend, which is an increase of 0.167 million since period 10. The main reason for the increase in the overspend from P10 to the outturn is due to the increased resources of 184k required to support the local government reorganisation. The project's team costs would have normally been charged to capital projects, but their work had to be redirected to the work on the LGR, which cannot be charged to capital. The 2026-27 budget has funding set aside to cover these costs. This outturn also included 1.546 capital MRP, which is marginal revenue provision adjustment saving, which resulted in overall underspend of 0.772 million. The other service areas and revenue budgets and actual costs and variances to the budgets are outlined in the report. Finally, from a capital perspective, during the 25-26 year, the council invested 29.256 million in capital schemes, including the town quarter and the improvements at Croxton Park. But you can see Appendix 3 for analysis of the council's 2025 and 26 capital programme. Before I put forward the two recommendations for approval at council, I would like to just finish off with one thing. Behind the numbers in this report are officers who work relentlessly to deliver great outcomes and high quality services for our residents across Watford. Throughout 2025 and 26, we have delivered our commitments and put our residents and Watford at the heart of everything we do. I would like to warmly thank all of our officers for all of their hard work, commitment and dedication, for all the councillors and portfolio holders for everything that you do to make sure that your budget's staying on track and all the work that you do with councillors, and also to Finance Scrutiny and Audit Committee chairs for your contribution, for all your feedback and contributions. And that continues to strengthen our work and our decision-making progress that helps us to make sure that we put our Watford residents at the heart of everything we do. So with that in mind, I would like to put forward the two recommendations for approval as set out in the report, points 3.6 and 3.7, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bacon. Mayor Taylor, I understand you're seconding the recommendation.
I'd like to second the recommendation and accept the right to speak.
Thank you very much. Is there any members who wish to speak on this item? Councillor Cole. Councillor Bell. Just to remind you members, you have 5 minutes each. Councillor Khan first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Councillors, Mr. Mayor. As Chair of Finance Scrutiny, my responsibility is not to manufacture alarm or engage in political point scoring. It's to test whether the headline figures tell us the whole story and whether the public money is being managed effectively. The administration will undoubtedly, understandably highlight the reported NG underspend of £772,000. However, we must be clear that the council's underlying net cost of services was actually, as mentioned, £774,000 over budget. The final underspend was achieved because of 1.5 million technical savings related to the minimum revenue provision, rather than because services collectively spent less than their plans. There are significant pressures, which we will focus on in the finance scrutiny, beneath this headline. Housing and well-being overspent by £236,000, including £464,000 pressures from temporary accommodation. Property and asset management overspent by £764,000, largely because of vacant units, lower than expected rental income at Watford Business Park, and the costs of maintaining empty properties. These aren't one-off concerns that can simply be ignored. They represent continuing risks of the council finances. We also need to examine delivery. The capital programme had a variance of almost £15 million, with 13.6 million being moved into future years. And we discussed in the finance scrutiny about whether it's project management, etc. And I remembered half back to Bernard, those of you who are around, when Bernard used to talk about the project managing and rephasing of capital programme. Rephasing may sometimes be justified, but repeated slippage delays improvements for residents and raises legitimate questions about whether the administration's ambitions are matched by their capacity to deliver. There are positives. The general fund remains as assessed, at the level of 3.9 million. It's right to acknowledge the hard work of the finance officers in managing a difficult economic environment. But my role and our role as a scrutiny is to look beyond the superficially favourable bottom line. We need to continue to monitor temporary accommodation, which we will, commercial incomes, which we'll do, empty properties, capital delivery, and the costs associated with local government reorganisation. The figures are stable today, but risks are real. The administration must demonstrate that it has a credible plan, not merely to balance the account through technical adjustments, but to control underlying service pressures and deliver the programme residents as we promised. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Councillor Bell.
Yeah, just a few points. Can the portfolio holder give me a view? I mean, are you concerned that the shortfall, obviously the 482,000 shortfall in the income for Watford Business Park? And obviously, as Councillor Kloss asked at the Finance Committee, what about the shortfall of commercial rental income, not just for Watford, but for Croxley?
Councillor Taylor. Sorry, Mayor Taylor.
I'll cancel as well now. Not one of you. So thank you for those two comments. I mean, first of all, I would say that Councillor Carl, I think it was a really fair summary that when he said that figures are stable but the pressures are real, we're really conscious that there's a national housing crisis that will affect temporary housing figures. I know that officers, Jenny and the team are working really hard to respond to that as best we can, but these figures demonstrate the pressures that we're under. Similarly, when it comes to our business parks, there's an economic climate. I would just say, because Councillor Hill chairs Property Investment Board, where we look at all of these things in detail in response to Councillor Bell's question on this, we have seen an improvement in the financial performance of Croxley in recent months. We've got a number of things. For example, many of you will know several charities now in Croxley Park. That's a good way. It's good financial sense for the council, but it's also a really good way of supporting those groups, and so it's a win-win in that respect. But we have also seen many commercial people moving in, businesses moving into Croxley, and as I say, an improved financial situation there. But it is all monitored really closely. We have systems in place to make sure that there's good financial management, and so I think you're right, Councillor Cole, when you said that figures are stable, the pressures are real. Officers are very much alert to that and taking steps to address those pressures where they exist.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. I don't think there's anybody else, so I'm going to turn to Councillor Bacon, if you want to sum up. We have 3 minutes. You don't have to, it's up to you.
Nothing more to add, Chair, apart from thank you for your feedback, Councillor Bell, thank you for your feedback, as always, Councillor Khan as well. I have full assurance from working as portfolio holders in the offices that we closely monitor our risks, our risk register, and have a look at making sure that we've got mitigating plans where everything's coming up. So thank you again, but I'd like to put forward the recommendations to the motion, please.
Thank
Not
you.
the motion, sorry, in the report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bacon. Thank you for that. So that's the end of the debate. So does the council agree the 2 recommendations as printed on pages 115 and 116 of the agenda pack? All those in favour, please show your hands. It's been carried, isn't it? Any abstentions? Any against? Any against? Any abstentions? No. Thank you. That recommendation has been carried. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 12, action on mould and damp properties owned by registered housing providers. So a report of the Housing Strategy Projects and Policy Manager has been circulated with the agenda. I'm inviting Councillor Pattinson to move the recommendation. You have up to 7 minutes, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair, and hopefully it won't be 7 minutes, but this is a really important report, and I'm going to just go through a few of the details. So I'm pleased to introduce this item, and it provides members of this council with an update on the work undertaken by the housing team following the motion agreed by this council in October last year, specifically calling for urgent action on damp and mould in homes owned specifically by registered housing providers. Before I turn to the report itself, I'd like to place on record my sincere thanks to the housing team and environmental health officers for the considerable amount of work that's gone into responding to the motion and bringing this comprehensive report back to council, but also for focusing on and managing the very real concerns about damp and mould raised by some residents. Housing standards are fundamental to people's health and well-being, and I know how seriously our officers are taking this issue. Members may remember that this motion was brought forward following growing national concern after the tragic death of 2-year-old Ewa Ishak, together with reports from some Watford residents experiencing persistent damp and mould in housing association properties. The motion asks council to better understand the scale of the problem locally, engage directly with housing associations, support affected residents and report back on the actions taken. And this report demonstrates that we've done exactly that. Our officers have written to major registered housing providers operating in Watford, requesting detailed information about the number of damp and mould cases, their response times and action plans they have in place to prevent future issues. We've engaged directly with Chine Housing, which manages the majority of social housing in Watford, and have reviewed the information they have provided on existing cases and the improvements that they are making. The report also sets out the important role that we as the council play as the local housing authority. While housing associations are responsible for maintaining their homes, the council has statutory enforcement powers where properties fail to meet the standards required. Our environmental health team continues to investigate complaints, assesses risk, require improvements where necessary, and supports residents with advice and intervention. This report also highlights the new protections introduced through AWAB's law, which place even greater responsibilities on social landlords to investigate and remedy damp and mould within strict timescales. Importantly, this is a report that is simply not looking backwards. It sets out how we'll continue to monitor performance by making damp and mould a standing item at the Housing Policy Advisory Group, ensuring members continue to receive oversight of housing providers' performance and that we maintain pressure for continual improvement. Ultimately, every single resident in Watford deserves to live in a home that is safe, warm and healthy. Damp and mould are not simply housing issues, they're public health issues, and this council will continue to work constructively with the registered housing providers whilst using our powers where necessary to ensure residents are protected. Therefore, I present this report to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brackinson. Mayor Keller, I understand you're secondly.
I would like to reserve the right to speak.
Thank you very much. Do any members wish to speak on this item? Councillor Conn, you're half up and half down.
Yeah.
Councillor Bell? Councillor Conn?
We'll get Councillor Bell to speak first.
Yeah, I'm just noting the names.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Oh, Councillor Dawn Allen Williamson? All right. Show favouritism, Councillor Bell this time.
My leader.
Thank you, Chair. And can I just say, this is a very impressive report. Obviously, we had the motion last, I don't know what council, full council, and this has been very well put together. I don't know if all the officers have done it in the Housing and Wellbeing team, but the report, and then to talk to, obviously, we've got the new housing association now, Chime, we know what's going in the Three Rivers, and there's obviously Sanctuary, well not Sanctuary, all the other ones now, but obviously High Town Victoria's got quite a lot of problems here. But the key things, the way you've gone through, AWAB's law, very important. Damp and mould, council 21 years, I'm sure lots of others have been there a long time. One of the big issues that comes up when you've got, when we had council housing, housing association housing, damp and mould, and it's something we have to take very seriously. So I'm really impressed with what you put together here, what officers have put together here, and for the future. And it was something that, it was good that it was brought to council, but I'm certainly impressed. I think it's for a long time, it's one of the best reports back from council. And the main thing is that we make sure this is, I suppose, a regular thing that we can follow up yearly or whatever. But certainly, I'm impressed with that. And it's important that we keep the links with the housing associations and also if you like, the smaller ones like Home and High Town Praetorian, as well as obviously Chime. But I'd say congratulations on that to officers and others, and we've got to keep on with this because damp and mould is a big issue for our residents. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Councillor Dawn Allen Williamson, please.
I just want to thank the housing officers that helped to monitor this and to make sure some work is being done. But however, I would request that the portfolio holder keep a close eye on what the Community Housing Trust, other known as Thrive, to make sure they communicate more frequently with all these people that may be evacuated out of the housing. One of our residents moved about 9 months since this motion has come to light, and even until yesterday, one should go back in, and only until they ring the trust that they know that they extended for another month. That is very poor. And another thing is, you really need to grip on these housing trusts, well, Thrive, to stop being so narrow-minded. They need to work with need to be more broad shoulder and don't take offense to residents when they complain, because the residents have got a voice and they must speak up. They must not be threatened and feel unsafe because they're going to be evicted. And I can see it every day, and that's unacceptable behavior.
Thank you, Councillor Rawlinson. Councillor Khan, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think that this has been an issue, sorry, Chair. This has been an issue that's been raised and overviewed scrutiny. We've done a specific report on this as well. Some of the colleagues are here. We work together collectively as well to deal with that. One of the key things, and I'm very sympathetic with that as well, one of the main caseworks that we get is it's about housing providers, we'll be trying for the others as well. And they are simple issues to deal with. If they are not dealt with quickly, then they become major problems. And I think that's what we find. So what I would say is that partnership working is fundamental as a council to work with these housing providers as well. And communication, constant communication, because residents will come to us as a last resort. They come to us because the processes and systems haven't worked. Because they haven't worked, they come to, and they say, look, can you be that advocate on our behalf of residents to deal with these issues? The other concern I'm getting more and more in part of my casework is not just with housing providers, that we've got social housing providers. It's great that we've treated social housing providers, and the more we do it, anything we can do to help, we'll do that. It's actually private housing as well. So private housing and stock, and making sure that they too provide that service as well. And the council, more often than not, will provide the rent through housing benefits, etc. For all these things. So I think what we also look at, just widen the scope. It's not just social housing, there's also the private housing, the private landlords that they also kept to a really good scrutiny, because unfortunately, having social housing is almost like I hate the word, but it's almost like a privilege. So few people will get social housing. Most people will now rely on the private sector rents and pay by rent, and that quality there needs to be checked as well. So those are my points to debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Mayor Taylor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bashir. I'd just like to start by paying tribute to Councillor Donald Williamson for bringing this issue forward. I think it's a really important topic, and it's credit to you for bringing it and highlighting it. I know that you care passionately about the subject and residents that are impacted by these issues. I'm sure all of us have had cases where we see the impact of damp and mould on local residents, the huge impact that it has. I also agree with the comment that Councillor Khan just made then about the importance of the private sector. Watford actually, I think, between the two most recent censuses, had the biggest increase in the proportion of residents living in private rented accommodation of any council in the country. And I know that the housing team recognised that. They now have a private landlord forum that's proving really impactful about building those relationships between council officers, members of their council Patterson always attends those meetings, and private landlords in the town. So we make sure that we work together to make sure we've got high standard housing for people that live in private rented and of course social rented as well. So thank you to the officers for this report. It's a really detailed report. It's good to see the progress being made, but I think we all recognise that there's of course still work to be done.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Over to Councillor Patterson to sum up. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I don't think there's too much more to say, other than if you read the report in detail on page 147 or page 7 of the actual report, there is a table in there that's really interesting that shows the detail of the number of complaints received by the housing team and then the enforcement action taken. And you'll see that the large proportion of enforcement action taken is against in the private rental sector, which is appropriate considering the size and scale. And you're right, Councillor Khan, the private rental sector is the answer to most people's housing problems, and working very closely with local landlords through the Landlords Forum and with our own our own letting agent now with them. I can't remember what it's called, just in Home Path. Home Path is really successful supporting people into the private rental sector, but we have to ensure that we monitor the private rental sector and enforce where necessary to ensure people have safe healthy homes. I think that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson, and for the healthy debate. So moving on, does the council agree with the three recommendations as printed in the agenda pack on page 142? All those in favour, please. All those against? All those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That recommendation is carried. Agenda item number 13, Watford Housing Strategy 2026 to 2030. A report to Cabinet of the Housing Policy Projects and Strategy Manager has been circulated with the agenda, and the minutes from Cabinet on 1st July have been circulated to all members by email and published online. I'm inviting Councillor Patterson to move the recommendation. You have up to 7 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, there's a lot of housing stuff on the agenda this evening, so I'm going to have to hear me talking about one of my favourite topics. So I'm actually delighted to introduce the Watford Housing Strategy for 2026 to 2030. And again, sincere thanks to Helen, to Justine, to Pete, to the entire housing team for the enormous amount of work that's gone into producing the strategy. Honestly, housing is one of the most challenging areas facing local government today. Demand continues to rise, affordability remains a real challenge for many families, and the legislative landscape continues to evolve. Throughout all of this, our housing team have continued to demonstrate professionalism, expertise, and a genuine commitment to improving the lives of our residents. So this strategy is much more than just a housing document. It provides a clear vision of how housing can improve health and well-being, support economic growth, strengthen communities, and ensure that everyone has access to safe, suitable and genuinely affordable homes. It also recognises that housing is not simply about bricks and mortar, it underpins absolutely everything about people's lives. So this strategy is built on 5 clear priorities. Number 1 is increasing the supply of affordable housing, providing better supported housing for those with additional needs, improving housing conditions and energy efficiency, and supporting regeneration and sustainable growth, and critically ensuring that Watford is well prepared for local government reform and all the changes that will bring, particularly to the housing area. Now, I suspect one of the questions this evening from other members is, will this strategy actually deliver more homes? It's important to remember that Watford Borough Council is not a housing stock owning authority. We are an enabling authority. That means our role is to use our planning partnerships, investment opportunities and external funding to maximise the delivery of affordable housing across the borough. So this strategy strengthens exactly that role, positioning Watford to make the most of the opportunities available to us, such as the government's Affordable Homes Programme, Warm Homes funding and other in-housing investment streams. Another question might be, how does this strategy help families facing homelessness? The strategy is very clear that temporary accommodation should never become a long-term solution. It commits us to working with partners to increase the supply of settled, affordable homes, improve supported housing provision, and to continue attracting funding to prevent homelessness wherever possible. That is ultimately how we'll reduce reliance on temporary accommodation, not simply by managing homelessness better, but increasing the housing options available to residents facing homelessness. Members may also ask about why we're adopting a strategy that runs until 2030, when the local government reorganisation is approaching. I would argue that that's precisely why this strategy is needed. Rather than waiting for change to happen to us, we are ensuring Watford enters that new landscape with a clear evidence base, clearly defined priorities and a strong strategic voice. The strategy specifically prepares for the housing responsibilities of the future unitary council and ensures that Watford's housing needs and ambitions are at the forefront of those future decisions. Finally, some may say that strategies are simply words on paper. This one for me isn't. An action plan will sit beneath the strategy, with delivery monitored and updated as circumstances change. The document provides the framework, but it's the action plan that will drive delivery over the coming years. It's an ambitious but realistic strategy. It recognises both the opportunities ahead and the challenges that we continue to face. It is rooted in partnerships, evidence and practical delivery, and importantly, it prepares Watford not just for the next 4 years, but for the next chapter of local government. I'm therefore really pleased to recommend this housing strategy to Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Bertel, I understand your second.
I am all right to speak.
Thank you very much. Do any members wish to speak on this item? Councillor Bell? Light on Emil. Somebody's light on.
Who's like?
Councillor
Councillor
Do you
Manjuma.
wish to speak on this? No, I don't think so. Anybody else? Councillor Bell.
Yeah, I wouldn't say too long, but obviously it's important on housing stock and housing strategy. We should say something on this. That's important. Yeah, I mean, overall, I support a lot of what's in there. It's right that you say that to go beyond 26 to 28, because we do need to be in as good a position as possible when local government reform comes. And obviously, whatever happens, it's going to be larger than just Watford, so there should be hopefully a chance of more developments working with Rivers and whoever else we're going to commit. And also the 60% of affordable homes for social rent, yeah, I'm further than 35%. I mean, 60% overall of social rent, I certainly agree with that. And yeah, on much of this, I agree.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Toten's dismissed, my speech should be nothing to add. I'm just going to add one thing very quickly, a couple of things. First of all, a huge thank you to Councillor Pattinson for her leadership on this issue. I think she rightly praised officers. There's been a lot of work with residents, with stakeholders, with partners, with Council Council, who really cares deeply about this and has made it a priority for this council. The one thing I wanted to add was priority one is about more affordable housing and increasing the supply. We spoke earlier about the skate park. I think it's really important that we all recognise how important it is to deliver affordable homes. It's all very well being in favour of trying to deliver more affordable homes in principle, and then in practice, whenever we see a planning application, we kind of find a reason why we don't support it in that particular case. Actually, if we want more people to be moved out of temporary accommodation and into proper homes where they can lead decent lives, we do need to build more affordable homes, as many as possible that are homes for social rent. This council recognises that, and this strategy is about how we deliver those homes that our local residents need.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. To Councillor Patterson to sum up if she wishes.
I don't need to say anything more, just thank you for the feedback. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, does the council agree that housing strategy 2026 to 2030? All those in favour? Thank you. Or anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The recommendation is carried. Right. Finally, moving on to motions. So time is 9 o'clock. So we now move on to the motions. We have 4 motions that have been received under Procedure Rule 13. I would remind all councillors that the mover of the motion has up to 7 minutes with the right to sum up of up to 3 minutes. Everyone else has up to 5 minutes and may only speak once. I understand there are no amendments to the second and the fourth motions in the agenda. Therefore, I intend to change the order of the motions this evening, as they are likely to generate similar comments, and we'll consider these 2 motions together. Firstly, I will ask the mover and the seconder of the second motion, protecting Jewish communities from anti-Semitic abuse, to move their motion, and then the mover and the seconder of the fourth motion, Watford Against Hate Charter, to move their motion. Once both motions have been moved, it has been confirmed whether any amendments are to be made. We will then open the debate on both motions. The mover of each motion will be invited to sum up. We'll then vote on each motion individually. So, dealing with first the motion, protecting Jewish communities from anti-Semitic abuse. The second motion is set out in the agenda and has been proposed by Councillor Robertson and seconded by Councillor Pattinson. Councillor Robertson submitted an amendment to his motion, which has been circulated to all members and uploaded to the council website. This is now the substantive motion. I will now invite Councillor Robertson to move the motion. You have up to 7 minutes, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. At the core of our values nation and our community is the belief that in the United Kingdom and in Watford, every single person deserves a fair deal where you can live a successful life, and most importantly, be safe. Yet, for many Jewish people in the UK, that belief is being challenged because for many there exists a climate of fear following a wave of anti-Semitic abuse that has occurred across our country. From stabbings in Golders Green to attempted firebombings of synagogues across London, and onwards to anti-Semitic graffiti I had to report in Watford Town Centre. there's been a terrifying normalisation in this country of anti-Jewish hate. And it's clear that we're at a fork in the road for the safety of Jewish people in our country. Down one route is meaningful action. Down another is placing our heads in the sand, too scared to confront the reality of the behaviours we see on the streets and the live reality for many people in our communities. In speeches tonight, many of my colleagues will expand on the very real fear for many Jewish people as they consider whether this country is safe anymore. It is a sad indictment of our country that we've reached a point where Jewish people have to wear Kevlar vests outside of the cinema, where Jewish schools have earlier closing times, and when terrified parents have to ask their children to hide their kippahs on the way to school, hiding their faith just so they do not look too visibly Jewish. We have an option to be better than this, and the decisions we take here tonight can have a tangibly positive impact on the lives of Jewish people across the town and across our country. Therefore, we're asking for some straightforward measures which will make a positive difference to the safety of the Jewish community. Firstly, we ask that the government fully funds any shortfall in security costs incurred. This is because no one should face financial hardship for their pay. Now, whilst appreciating this is not in the gift of Watford Borough Council, it is nonetheless important to stand up and make this argument in the hope that government will listen. Secondly, we're asking the Peace and Crime Commissioner to change the strategy and to place greater emphasis on anti-Semitic crime. Working with the special units already set up by the Metropolitan Police, specifically with the remit of tackling anti-Semitic crime. And lastly, we have worked with Hertfordshire County Council's executive member for education, and we're calling for work with schools and the wider Watford community to increase awareness and education around anti-Semitism, including asking Hertfordshire Standing Advisory Committee on Religious Education to review and improve the quality of education around hatred against those with protected characteristics. These are three small measures beyond continuing our current and very powerful interfaith work as a town. However, each of them will make a positive impact on the daily lives and the safety of Jewish people that we represent. It is time for our town and our country to come together and stand strong against anti-Semitism. Thank you.
Councillor. I now invite Councillor Pattinson to second the motion. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second this motion, although I'm deeply concerned that we're having to bring such a motion to this council in the first place. And I'm seconding this motion not simply as a councillor, but as someone whose family and professional life are deeply rooted within the Jewish community. For most of you know, I live within a Jewish family. My son's proudly Jewish. They know their history, their traditions, and their identity. But what saddens me most is that outside the safety of our home, they often choose to hide that identity. No parent should have to watch their children make a conscious decision not to wear something, not to say something, or not to mention who they are because they are worried about how others might react. That isn't history, that's today. Professionally, as the CEO of a large Jewish community charity, I've also seen the impact firsthand. I have the privilege to care for some of the most vulnerable members of the Jewish community, including Holocaust survivors and older people who have spent their entire lives contributing to our society. And I'm going to highlight one of them today because he's very, very special. He's the oldest Jewish man in the UK, and it's his birthday tomorrow. He'll be 107 years old. BBC News will be featuring his story tomorrow evening, so please do watch. He fought for our country. He was part of Cable Street. And instead of concentrating on outstanding care in my professional life, we've had to invest significantly in additional security measures, security guards, physical protection, and increased vigilance. And they've all become part of my everyday life. My residents deserve to spend their final weeks, months, and years feeling safe, surrounded by love, dignity, and familiarity, not worrying about the hatred that exists beyond our walls. Recently, I attended a community week meeting at Watford Synagogue in response to the most recent anti-Semitic incidents across our country. What struck me wasn't anger, it was fear. Ordinary people spoke honestly about how life has changed. Parents worried about their children, community leaders worried about their places of worship, volunteers worried about security. There was a genuine sense of anxiety that many people outside the Jewish community simply never see. That meeting strengthened my resolve to support this motion. This motion is not about saying that one form of hatred matters more than another. It does not. Islamophobia, racism, homophobia, anti-Semitism, and every form of prejudice diminish our society. Every victim deserves our support, every community deserves protection, and every act of hatred should be challenged. But recognising anti-Semitism does not diminish anyone else's experience. It simply acknowledges the reality that our Jewish neighbours are facing today. And if we're serious about tackling hatred, we have to be prepared to name it, to understand it, and to educate people about it. Education is perhaps the most powerful part of this motion. Hatred is not something people are born with, it is learned, which means it can also be unlearned. By working with schools, faith groups and community organisations, we can help young people understand Jewish history, Jewish culture and the devastating consequences anti-Semitism has had throughout history and continues to have today. Education builds understanding, understanding builds respect, and respect builds stronger communities. Watford has always been a town that prides itself on being welcoming, inclusive and compassionate. We have an excellent record of bringing communities together and we should be really proud of that. This motion builds on those values. It says clearly to our Jewish residents, you belong here, you are valued here, you should never feel frightened because of who you are. And it says equally clearly that this council will stand against hatred in whatever way it appears and in whatever form it takes. Chair, I hope every member of this chamber can unite behind that simple principle, because standing against anti-Semitism is not a Jewish issue, it's a human issue, and I'm proud to second this motion and to make it to council. Thank you.
Do any members wish to move any amendments to this motion? Thank you. We move on to motion 4, Watford Against Hate Charter. We now move on to the fourth motion, which has been proposed by Councillor Khan and seconded by Councillor Binzer. I now invite Councillor Khan to move the motion. You have up to 7 minutes, Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just on the previous motion, I've got some personal experience of the ignorance behind anti-Semitism. During my own life, despite being a Muslim, I've received anti-Semitic abuse to be direct. It shows the ignorance that people have. It sounds absurd. It demonstrates the utter ignorance of those who use such abuse. Their hatred is often indiscriminate. It's not based on knowledge, on prejudice, appearance, and desire to abuse anyone they perceive as different. Now, with this particular motion, I'm proud to propose this motion tonight, seconded by my colleague, Councillor Binzer. Now, at its heart, this motion is about the kind of town we want Watford to be. Do we want a town where people feel frightened to attend the mosques, the synagogues, the bourahs, the churches or temples, where parents worry about their children wearing visible symbols of faith, where women, older people and families feel anxious simply because of who they are? Or do we want a town where every resident knows that they belong, that they are valued, that their council and the wider community will stand beside them when hatred is directed towards them? For me, the answer is clear. I hope everybody thinks the answer is clear. Watford is one of the most diverse and welcoming towns in this country. Our diversity is not a problem to be managed. It is one of our greatest strengths, and I believe in it. People of different faiths, cultures, backgrounds live alongside one another, work together, support our voluntary organisations, and contribute enormously to the life of our town. And it's important to say this clearly. The vast majority of people in Watford are decent, they're respectful, and they're welcoming. The vast majority do not hate their neighbours, do not judge people because of their faith, ethnicity, or background. They want to live peacefully together. But too often, it's the small, vocal minority that dominates the conversation, particularly online. A handful of hateful comments can create the impression that division is widespread and that can cause fear far beyond the number of people making them. They can make whole communities feel unwelcome, unsafe, and isolated. online hate is not harmless. What begins as a comment behind a screen can have a real impact on people's lives. It can normalise prejudice, spread misinformation, and encourage others to become more aggressive in their language and behaviour. And unfortunately, we've seen that here in Watford. Recently, a positive visit, school visit, Beechwood School, visited North Watford Mosque. It was shared online. Some of you may have seen that post, a very beautiful, lovely post. It should have been seen for what it was, young people learning about their neighbours, building understanding and breaking down barriers. I'm approaching, well, I'm 50 years old. I went to mosques and synagogues and I'm sure many of you went when you were at school. It's not a new phenomenon in this country. Instead, it attracted deeply disturbing anti-Muslim comments. 6,000 comments, over 6,000 comments on a single post, not all of them negative. These comments were not simply words on a screen, they caused genuine fear amongst members of the Muslim community and the Muslim community. Women, children, and older worshippers questioned whether they were safe. And some of the comments, for example, and I've sent this to the police, did they show them the severed head section or the bomb-making department? Indoctrination into a pedo death cult. Indoctrination by the enemy within. These are comments on that mosque post. I can go on and on and on. Disgusting. People who had opened their doors in friendship were met by the same assumption with hostility and hatred. I chaired a community reassurance meeting following this, and I'm grateful for Councillor Bell, Councillor Bashir, and Councillor Watkin who attended. Police were there, council representatives, Justine was there, faith leaders and members of the community. What came through very clearly was a need for better reporting, stronger reassurance, sustained engagement, not only when an incident occurs, but throughout the year. My support for this motion isn't limited to just one community, and that's fundamentally important to me. I've attended a synagogue and taken in solidarity meetings with members of the Watford Jewish community. I have a dear friend from the Watford Jewish community. I've listened to their concerns and stood alongside them when they felt threatened or anxious. I've also visited the Sikh Gurdwara, met members of the Sikh community who themselves have faced racism, abuse and hatred. And thank you, Jagtar, for inviting me and organising some of these meetings. These experiences reinforce a simple truth. Hatred may target different communities at different times, but the fear and damage it causes are the same. Our solidarity mustn't be selective. We cannot condemn Islamophobia while ignoring anti-Semitism. We cannot oppose anti-Semitism while remaining silent about anti-Sikh hatred. We cannot challenge racism in one form while tolerating it in another. When one community is targeted, every community should be concerned. An attack on a mosque, or synagogue, or gurdwara, or a church, or a temple, or any other place of worship is an attack on the freedom and dignity of all of us. So what this motion does is more than condemn hatred. Condemnation is important, and we should do this often. But words alone aren't enough. So the proposed Watford Against Hatred Charter will give organisations across our town the opportunity to make a visible and public commitment rejecting hatred and discrimination. Schools, businesses, sports clubs, charities, voluntary groups, council, places of worship will be invited to sign a shared pledge to promote respect, challenge prejudice, misinformation, support victims, encourage positive relationships between different communities. The Charter will help turn our shared values into shared responsibility. It will help ensure the vocal minority doesn't speak for Watford. People who reject hate must be more visible, more confident, more united, that those who seek to divide us have got nothing in this town. The motion also commits us to working with the police, the community safety partnership, schools, faith leaders to improve awareness of hate crime reporting, strengthen support for those affected. Too many incidents go unreported, too many. Some people believe nothing will happen. Others are uncertain whether they have the time. Let me just conclude. Mr. Chairman, the overwhelming majority of Watford residents reject hatred. They want their children to grow up understanding one another and not fearing one another. They want people to be able to worship freely and take part in community life without intimidation. This motion is an opportunity for us as a whole council to give that voice to the majority. It's an opportunity to say to our Muslim, Jewish, Sikh, Christian, Hindu, other faith communities that enough's enough. We work together to start this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Windsor to second the motion. You have up to 5 minutes.
I second the motion and reserve the right to speak later.
Thank you. Do any members wish to move any amendments to this motion? Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak on these two motions? Thank you. I'll start with the Mayor, please.
Okay, I will try to be brief. First of all, thank you to those councillors who brought forward these motions. I, of course, support both of them. Will be voting for them. I think the one thing that struck me from a number of the comments was about fear, about the reality that people, Jewish residents in our town, Muslim residents in our town, Sikhs, Hindus who feel fearful to live in our town. And I think all of us need to reflect on that and recognise the need to respond to it effectively. Donna and myself had a briefing, I think, yesterday from the people leading the action to tackle hate crime in the police in Hertfordshire. They were the leaders of other councils and MPs in this area. And I would like to commend the police for the work that they're doing. But I think we've also got to recognise that it's not just a police matter. That actually, if we're looking to tackle the causes of this, there's a lot to do. And I'm sure the council will talk about schools, they're really important. But actually, it's more than schools and police. I think we've got to think really hard about the kind of society we are creating and we're living in. I mean, Councillor Cobb made the point rightly about the Beachfield visit to the mosque. Of course, my children visited mosques, Guaras, synagogues, churches. That's a good thing. And it is concerning when we see the reaction. Similarly, when we had the march recently from the town hall to Castle Park, those social media posts were covered with responses, negative responses from members of the public. When I was a teacher, I know other people, we've got other teachers in here. One of the things that was always a real challenge was a parents' evening. The ones students wanted to speak to and their parents were the ones that were the least likely to turn up. When it comes to this issue, I think that often we create forums and we create kind of discussions and charters that people who already actually agree with us and recognise the benefits of a tolerant, caring, kind society, they will come part of it and sign up. What we've actually got to think really hard about is how do we reach those people? The boy that sits at home has become quite isolated, doesn't really engage with his family and friends, and is getting indoctrinated online. How do we reach that person? I think that's a real challenge for us. At a recent Watford Interfaith Association, a group that do great work on this, their recent AGM, Councillor Lawrence Brass came to speak to us. Many of us will know, a fantastic county council for Bushire, Jewish man. He really did challenge us, saying, actually, if we just carry on doing what we're doing, we're not solving the problem. We've got to be really honest that we face really significant challenges. I think all of us, I don't have the answers, we've got to answer about the extent to which this is a problem, and the extent to which kind of doing what we've always done and having chances. I will support this, but what I'm saying is we've got to think really carefully about how do we reach those hard to reach people who are becoming radicalised and pose a real threat to the kind of society that we are, the kind of town that we live in.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Chair. I guess just a few reflections for me. So being a Muslim female, and it's really hard when you listen to some of the things and some of the hate that people experience. So a few of my sisters wear the hijab and they're frightened to wear the hijab. So I can absolutely empathise with those that are feeling fear. I think there's one thing that we as councillors have got to really role model, and that's inclusive behaviours. So regardless of our ethnicity, our faith, we've got to be really mindful whether we're doing a Muslim event, a Jewish event, a Christian event. How can we make sure that we broaden our reach and be inclusive of other people? A Muslim event doesn't need to be just for Muslims, a Jewish, a Christian, whatever event. So I'd really encourage you to think about events that you go to, events that you attend. How inclusive are we? How are we bringing about learning and encouraging others to learn more about each other? Not just from a faith and ethnicity perspective as well, but also from a gender perspective. Far too often I see events that are front-lined with males. And I sit there and I think, don't forget us females. I'm a female Muslim, and I'd like to make sure that I have a voice and other Muslim females have a voice when we have Muslim events. So I'd like to share that with you in the safe space. And please be reflective of things that you organise, because to our mayor's point, if we're going to change behaviours, we need to make sure that we are inclusive of other people outside of the normal people that sit around the table. And that starts with you being comfortable and to be inclusive and respectful of others as well. So let's make sure we roll on with that. Thank you.
Councillor Bell, please.
Thank you, Chair. I won't say too much, but just to support everybody here, and I rise to support both the motions of my colleague Essie Khan and Councillor Robertson, and obviously as what Councillor Patton said, obviously pay tribute to, he said this chap was wanting to give me 107, and obviously if it's a Cable Street reference, and small first company, so that's sending our regards, obviously, and our best wishes. Yeah, I mean, I was certainly affected when last year we had the terrible events at the outside the synagogue in Manchester, and I went with Councillor Khan on it had to be on the Saturday. I know because they were being matinee and people there. I was certainly affected by hearing what the Jewish members said at the time, because I was shocked at some of the, as you say, felt quite ridiculous, and then I thought, in Watford in this time I was a little shocked about that. And I've been since then as well, and heard what some of the members have said. So that is certainly shocking. And I remember going back to when I put down that emergency motion after October the 7th, and we had that, we had last put down the motion, which we backed it, so that was good. We didn't want to be where we are now, 2.5 years later, but there you are. But the key thing is that even when we had those riots, and we've said since, we had those riots 2 years ago in the awful July and August, because of the good relationship we have across the town and the interfaith and between the mosques and the Church of England, the synagogue as well, we actually didn't have that. Thankfully, the riots didn't get to us. There's all the rumours and stuff on social media when it comes to pushing it, and it didn't happen. And that's the great thing, and that's a good thing. And we've tried to keep that up with meetings from the council and others since then. I take on what the mayor says about sort of well having meetings, having meetings and everything, and we've all been to meetings and stuff as children and our own children. But of course, as you say, it's not just parents and families and schools and organisations. It needs everybody. It needs parents themselves and families to try and get across to those. Maybe that one individual, as you say, might end up being up looking at things he shouldn't be looking at, and then he ends up doing something bad. So it needs everybody. But I say I fully support both the motions, and I think we've done that. I said they're both acted on. I mean, on the one that Council Resolve 2 from Councillor Robertson asked the elected mayor to write to the Home Secretary and ask for fair funding to be allocated. Well, I'm sure that should be happening. I noticed in the last day we had the reports that extra funding that's going to be allocated to Hertfordshire. I know technically we won't get much in Watford, it's mainly Hertfordshire, but there'll be some, I'm sure. And it needs the reassurance, obviously, to the synagogue, but also to the mosque. While work with schools and the wider communities, we will set it's fine and SACRA, and ensure that Watford Borough Council remains resolute in our support for the Jewish community throughout the town, and have anybody not support that. So yeah, I fully support that, and obviously my colleague has to start the motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Councillor Watkins, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Mr. Taylor has really, I think, captured the essence of this, which is how do we get the community in its largest sense to actually welcome each other, understand each other, and come together. If I may, I've been 2 stories that affected me recently. I went to the synagogue about a month ago to just inform on the vigil event that had been. And the synagogue was full, this is our little Watford synagogue. And I have to say, the sense of fear was palpable. It was shocking. And I am naive. I've lived in Watford and written some words here, which is all about what a wonderful place Watford is. And I don't sense normally in this community that there is fear. Last week, I went to the mosque because on Tuesday, I think we were there. And the same sentiments are being expressed by people who live in Watford. But it's more fear than real. I know, how can I put this? It's the fear that it might happen than it actually is happening. And what I'm really trying to say in a rather clumsy way is that we have to continue to work in every way we can to open our doors, to understand each other. Peter's referred to SACRE, which is the organisation I chair, which is responsible for the curriculum, religious curriculum of university schools. And our curriculum is absolutely about teaching young people the different faiths, so they can learn about what their fellow pupils, their lives, their beliefs, and so they are us, not them. And I think that is the critical point, us, not them. So I really am rambling here, but I just want to say, I absolutely support these motions. I think we have to limit all those minority communities that are feeling threatened at the moment. And indeed, at County Council meeting next week, I'm also putting in a motion, but it's against hate crime specifically, generally, rather than specifically anti-Semitism, Islamophobia. Please listen to what you're hearing from our colleagues who are seeing it for themselves for the first time, or for what they experience all the time. It is vital that we get the message out. We are a community, we must be working together.
Thank you, Councillor Watkin. Just to remind members, perhaps not to repeat the same points that other members have made. I'm quite conscious of the time we've got and motions to get through as well. So just a reminder, Councillor Ian Sharp, please.
Chair, given your reminder of that, other members have spoken very powerfully and movingly on those matters, and I feel I probably have not a great deal to add other than endorse what they've said.
Very grateful, Councillor Sharp. Councillor Dawn Allen Williamson, please.
Thank you. I won't say much because time is going to you, but it's a difficult topic, basically. When you come up to racism, I think racism, it seems like it's against every nation at the moment. I think the world has just gone crazy. I mean, one thing I had in my head, I grew up in a Pakistani home from when I was 19. I turned up one day at the house, and the 2-year-old boy turned on and said to his grandmother, "It's gone, she's black." And that was 2 years old child. The poor grandmother didn't know where to put her head. So sometimes we are saying like there's racism against us, but we're actually the racist person or people. So we have to be just mindful and love each other. And I think that's what we're short of here. I mean, as a black person, I've been dealing with 2 cases. One of the parents was black, and I was asked the question same time, are you related? Twice. Why? Because we're 2 black people. So we just have to be mindful. I think what we want to learn from this, we need to love each other. As everybody knows, I'm straightforward. If I have a problem with you, I'll tell you there and then, and then move on. Don't carry, because when you carry it, that's what caused this problem. There's so much I could say, but I'm going to leave it.
Thank you, members. I'm going to invite Councillor Robertson to invite a reply on his motion, please. You have up to 3 minutes. That's from Councillor Dinton. Apologies, Councillor Dinton.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people made the comments, so I won't repeat them. I'll put the new comments. When I was growing up in the 70s and 80s here, I experienced a lot of racism, and I thought we had gone through that. It's come back in those days. I went to Grange Park School in Bushy, where we had a high percentage of South Oxy boys in there. It's all boarding school. And we often had to sit in a lesson and work out how I'm going to get to the next lesson without being attacked. And instead of concentrating and learning in a lesson what was taught, half the mind was on how we're going to get to the next classroom. So I had no choice. I had to take up boxing and martial art, and we had to fight back to defend ourselves. And also since the rise, since the senseless and devious murder of Henry Norbert by Vikram Dikpa, there was a lot of hate against the Sikhs. And I'm not going to shy, as Dawn said, I'm also a straightforward person. that was stirred up by some of the reform activists. And so that stirred up a lot of hatred. Elderly Sikh man was attacked in Midlands and set alight. And also last weekend, 24-year-old Kuldeep Kaur, a Sikh female, was murdered in Hayes over the weekend. And a white gentleman has been arrested. And it was related to race crime. And Sikhs have contributed a lot to this country, world and the country. Sikhs fought in the First World War and the Second World War. And my father was in the British Army and he fought in the Second World War. Hence, he came here when the travel warrants were given, when there's a shortage of labour. Some of the religious people can't hide their faith. Like, okay, I'm a Sikh, but I've cut my hair so I can be confused as a Hindu or a Muslim. But if you're a practicing Sikh and wearing the 5Ks and the turban, you can't hide your faith. So you get discriminated. Same applies to some of the practicing Jewish people, and same applies to the Muslim women who wear their hijab. So there should not be any need for people to hide their identity to survive. So that is very important, and we all need to stand for each other. And we will defeat these evil, racist people who are bad if we all stick together. Today, by the way, we were mentioning 107-year-old Jewish. Today is the first death anniversary of my uncle, Hodja Singh, who you probably remember. He was 114. He was American. He lived a lot of his life in England as well. He came here when he was 89 and he started running marathons then. He died in an accident in India last year today. And whenever I used to go to India, his house was like from here to wherever town hall building. He used to come to me every morning and evening. I used to enjoy his company. So I just wanted to remember him as well. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Councillor Dinder. Councillor Mujima? Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Everyone is talking about racism and everything, so I just want to say something. It's basically, I'm not actually sure why, I mean, this is the racism, is the color or the religion or whatever, I mean, they're talking about. But everyone is like confused, I think. I think racism, what they're saying, sometimes they say it's their skin, sometimes they say it's their religion, sometimes they say it's something else. What is the racism? It's that we all are human beings. We all, the best thing is, I'm not comparing the racism, is the culture, and they're mixing with the culture and the religion. And the culture is something else. Our culture is one thing, and I don't know what they're hating about. Is the culture or the religion? So I think everything is mixed up. I think the best thing is being human. Your heart is, best religion is being a great human, not your skin, not your color, not your religion, nothing else. Best religion is the best human. I just want to pass that to everyone. If you look into yourself and see what is inside you, what you hate, someone's color, someone's religion, it's nothing. It's just they choose to do that. It's just they want to be like that. It's just something they just want to create problems. It's got nothing to do with religion or culture or anything else. It's just they're not being a good human being. That's all. If you look into yourself, I think there wouldn't be any hate or Jewish or Muslim or Christian. We all same. We speak same. We do the same. We serve the country. We serve the community. We do everything. Like there's many cultural people in the finance and the billionaires, the everything. But when it comes to like locality or the world is always hate. it's racism. Racism. It's just inside their head. It's nothing. It's not culture. It's nothing. It's just the human wants to be like this and create this problem, and there's an issue. That's it. And I just want to say to everyone, just look inside yourself, look inside your heart, who you are, not what color you have, not what religion you have. Just see yourself, and you'll find there won't be any racism. It's just you and yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Quite remember, perhaps just to turn their phones off or put them on silent. It's quite disturbing when you have every little meeting. So, thank you. I invite Councillor Robertson to exercise his right to reply. You have up to 3 minutes if you wish to choose it.
Thank you, Chair. I shall take substantially shorter than 3 minutes. Just want to say thank you to everyone who's spoken. I think it's a testament to who we are as a town. We can come together like this and make such a comprehensive stand across all of the issues. So thank you everyone for the wholehearted support.
Thank you. So we'll move on to the vote now. So all those in favour of the first motion moved this evening, protecting Jewish communities from anti-Semitic abuse, please show. All those in favour? Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That motion is carried. Thank you. I now invite Councillor Khan to exercise his right to reply. You have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you. And look, it's a simple thing. You know, both motions and other previous motions is this. So let's send a united message from this chamber that there's no place for hatred in Watford. You know, let's adopt this Watford Against Hate Charter. Let's actually go in and be very positive and work with all communities and challenge this hatred as well, and open as well. I want to mention that humanity that we all, the common thread amongst all of us as well. Strengthen our practical work, continue together, work together. So I'd ask everybody to support this and work together to get this sorted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. So we'll now move on to the vote. All those in favour of the second motion moved this evening, Watford Against Hate Charter, please show your hands. Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That is carried. We'll move on to motion 1 then. No, it's not. First motion is and the agenda has been proposed by Mayor Taylor and seconded by Councillor Dashton. Details are contained in the agenda. I now invite Mayor Taylor to move the motion. You have up to 7 minutes.
Thank you. I'm being conscious to tense. I will be very quick to say that structures really matter. Sometimes I think, you could think it's kind of an academic point, but what the motion sets out is the government are looking to reduce the number of police services from 43 to just 12. They'll be huge. And I think actually when you end up with these enormous organisations, there's a real risk that it loses touch with the local community. The debate we just had is all about how do we embed ourselves in the community, how do we have services that know their local residents, that know the issues, and we can respond to them. The danger of having these vast organisations is that they, yes, the police officers do great work, yes, they'll be focused on particular things, but there's that disconnect between the very top of those organisations and the communities they seek to serve. And we're seeing it not just in policing, but if you take, for example, health, the ICB Central East, as we are now part of, covers 3.5 million people. It covers Bedfordshire, Luton, Hertfordshire, Milton Keynes, Cambridge, Peterborough. It's a vast area, and I just think there's a real risk. But of course, this week we should hear the announcement when it comes to councils. The Labour government's approach needs to be in all of these situations. Let's create huge organisations that cover vast geographies and huge populations. I think what this motion is setting out is that there's concerns about that, that actually want to make sure we have, when it comes to policing, to health, to local government, organisations that are small enough to understand the locality and respond to the issues that affect those communities. So I urge you to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. I now invite Councillor Dyson to second the motion.
Thank
You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'm pleased to second this motion. I do so as a Deputy Mayor of Watford, a member of the Hertfordshire Police and Crime Panel, and a safer and stronger community board member. Those roles gives me the privilege of seeing how policing works across our county and how, more importantly, what our residents expect from it. At the heart of this debate is a simple question. What delivers the best outcomes for our residents? People are not asking for bigger police organizations. They are asking for safer streets, visible neighborhood policing, and officers who know their communities. They want policing that is local, accountable, and responsive. As a member of the Police and Crime Panel, I have seen how important local scrutiny and accountability are. Strong policing isn't just about operational effectiveness, it's about public confidence. That confidence comes with decisions are made close to the community they affect. Through my work on the Safer and Stronger Community Board at LGR, I also see that policing succeed because of the partnership between the police, council, health services, schools, and the voluntary sector. Those partnerships are effective because they are built locally. I also want to recognize the excellent work of Chief Inspector Dan Rainberg and his team here in Watford. They understand our communities, have built trusted relationships and provided the kind of neighbourhood policing that residents value. But reform should be evidence-led, not simply driven by larger structures. Hertfordshire is a county of over 1.2 million people with strong partnership and a well-established constabulary. It already works collaboratively with neighbourhood forces where appropriate while retaining the local leaderships and accountability of residents expect. With local government reorganisation and devolution already underway, it is only sensible for those changes allowed to take shape before any decisions are made about reorganisation policing. We should get government right before redrawing police boundaries. Chair, this motion is about putting residents first. It's about protecting local accountability, preserving community policing, and ensuring that any future reform will improve the service our communities received and deserved. For those reasons, I'm proud to second this motion and encourage colleagues across the chamber to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ashton. Do any members wish to move any amendments to this motion? No. Thank you very much. Does any members wish to speak on this motion? Is that light on? We've got everybody. I've got Ian, Emil, I see very much. So we'll go to Ian.
Yeah, thanks. Really quick, I promise. Just say one of the other things that's being planned is the National Police Programme. I think that's something to welcome. But just to echo what the Mayor said, if you amalgamate systems into one larger, cohesive block, the opportunity for scrutiny at a local level becomes harder. The appealing principles by which Rockfield sets up the National Police is about policing by consent, i.e. the public have the opportunity to scrutinise the police. We lose agency to do that if we make really large police forces. It's fundamentally wrong as to how we lay down policing. I think it should be
Thank you, Councillor Stokesbridge. Councillor Emil Rowe.
I'll make this short and sweet. At 10 o'clock today, I had a meeting with parishioners from Methodist Church in Holywell with regards to two recent incidences. The main theme from them was about safety and police presence within the area. Local police presence forms the backbone to community safety, and it's important that we show that we support that and go against any effort to take it out of the local community. That's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Emil. Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I won't be long. There is nothing in the proposals to take away from local police presence. In fact, the proposals, hopefully, and it's still, the review's still going, hopefully will mean that there will be greater opportunities for local police, like in Holywell, Vicarage, across the whole borough, to actually concentrate on local crime. And the main issue about it, actually, if you bring the forces together, and it's not necessarily happening yet, the review's still going on, and the Home Secretary hasn't made a decision yet. But it's the mainly, as Councillor Scotsby said, about creating a national police force. That's one of the great positive things about it. And when you think of what's happened with police and especially their treatment of women, we were talking about war earlier, this is going to be very important. We have a new national standard and national policing. But the other big thing, obviously, if there is merger, I mean that counter-terrorism, the ability to tackle serious organised cross-border crime will be much easier. And it'll be a more effective service in specialist areas such as major crime, roads, policing and firearms. But the one thing that should not be happen because of it would be neighbourhood policing. And that's one thing we've been told by people close to the sector, that say the decision's not been made yet, and they're still looking at it. And the whole point is that the key outcome affecting our local officers would be how what they call LPAs, I'm speaking about the local policing areas. But they need to be better resourced, and I hope they will be. But I certainly don't support this. I just wondered when we saw the motion, I thought, where have I seen this before? And of course, I remember as Councillor Watford, remember we had a very similar motion put forward by the Conservatives at the recent county council. So, so you picked that one up. And there's a lot of talk about the Police and Crime Commissioner. Well, also under these plans and the plan for the government is that we get rid of the Police and Crime Commissioners and we try and get something more local and more local scrutiny. But I'll leave it there and we won't support this one.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Councillor Khan.
Thank you. Don't know if it's on or not. Right, so look, I can't support this motion because its title will create the impression that Hertfordshire policing and perhaps even Watford policing is at risk of disappearing. This is simply not the case. Whatever future structure is proposed, policing in Watford will continue. We will still have the Chief Inspector of Watford and Three Rivers, by the way. We still have neighbourhood officers, an inspector, response teams, detectives, and officers working directly with other communities. Watford Police is not being abolished. The issue being considered is how police forces are organised, governed and supported, not whether our town will continue to receive a policing service. Now, I've worked closely with local police officers over many years. I value those relationships. I would oppose any proposal that reduces neighbourhood policing, weaken local accountability and move officers away from Watford. But the name or geographical boundary of a police force is not by itself what keeps Watford residents safe. The real question is whether officers remain rooted in Watford, whether residents can report crime easily, whether response times improve, and whether police have the specialist resources needed to tackle serious crime and more complex crime. Hertfordshire already works with neighbouring police forces on major crime, armed policing, roads policing, and other specialist services. Cooperation across Hertfordshire boundaries is therefore not new. Crime does not stop at the county border. Fraud, cybercrime, organised crime, online hate, trafficking, county lines all require police forces to work across wider areas. The motion asks us to oppose any possible merger before the detailed proposals and evidences are available. That's premature. We should make clear that local policing in Watford must be protected. We should demand strong neighbourhood teams and meaningful local accountability. But we shouldn't tell residents that Watford Police is being taken away when that is not what's being proposed. This is a debate about the structure above local policing, not the removing of policing from the town. I will judge any eventual proposal when it's delivered for residents, victims and frontline officers. For those reasons, I can't support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Cole. I don't think there's any other members who wish to speak, so I'm going to turn to Mayor Taylor to start off with a few minutes. 3 minutes.
Yeah, thank you for that. Just responding to the point by Councillor Cole. The motion's title is say Hertfordshire Constabulary. There won't be a Hertfordshire Constabulary if we merge Hertfordshire Constabulary with region. Just as, that is the point of it. Nowhere does that say there won't be policing in Watford. I think that's a really inaccurate representation of what the motion says. What they will mean is that there won't be at the moment.
A point of clarification. Okay. Yeah, so actually it's in the motion where it says DCI. Read the motion itself. It mentions Dan Rainbird by name, who is the Chief Inspector of Watford. Hence, my speech was reflecting that particular point. So actually, that's a point of personal clarification.
The motion praises the work of police officers, which I think is the right thing to do. The person who wouldn't exist anymore wouldn't have a chief constable for Hertfordshire because there would be a Hertfordshire constabulary. Many of us have worked with Andy Prophet. He does a great job. I can go to the Police and Crime Commission panel, can hold him, can hold the Police and Crime Commission to account. What Labour are proposing is to remove that layer, to create a larger regional layer. And we as Liberals actually think we should be bringing power down to communities, holding them to account, making sure Labour obviously want to centralise, want to create these vast bureaucracies away from communities. They're happy with it, they're content. All we see is in service after service, be it health, policing, local government, Labour's all about merging and creating mega organisations that spread across a large region rather than organisations that are more closely aligned to local communities. Clearly, Councillor Khan is happy with that. I'm not. I think that policing is best when it's totally embedded with the community. And that means us being able to hold people to account, like the Chief Constable of Hertfordshire. That person's meant to exist. That's why this motion says Save Hertfordshire Constabulary. It's completely accurate, and I hope all of us will support it. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to all members who contributed to the debate. We'll move on to the vote then. I invite members to vote on the motion. All those in favour, please show your hands. Thank you. All those against? Any abstentions? That motion has been carried. So we move on to the last motion, which is the motion 3000 in multiple application. Is there a point of order?
Yeah, point of order under Council Procedure Rule 15.7a. The Constitution states that an amendment must not be a direct negative of the original motion. This amendment deletes swathes of the original motion, including its operative commitment to undertake an urgent review with the view of implementing an Article 4 direction, and replaces it with a different and potentially open-ended task and finish process. Therefore, I ask for your ruling on whether this goes beyond the amending of the motion and instead directly negates and replaces its central purposes. Simply, the Liberals could have just voted against the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. I have taken advice from our monitoring officer, and I would ask him to reiterate that advice in the council before I make my ruling on this.
Thank you, Chair. Members did seek advice at the time the amendment was submitted, and I did consider the submission in line with the Council Procedure Rules, specifically 15.7, which sets out, as Councillor Khan has said, the amendment's motions can't be a direct negative of a motion, nor can they introduce into the motion a new issue unrelated to the subject dealt with in that motion. Having assessed the amendment, my view was that the amendment actually doesn't do either of those and is therefore valid. Rather, it engages directly with the motion and poses mechanisms to deliver that action and not negate it. The Council Procedure Rules permit the leaving out and insertion of words, and although we haven't got a track change version, there are lines that are the same and the same themes and references covered in both the main motion and the subsequent amendment. So note Councillor's point of order. My view remains that the amendment has been submitted in line with the Council Procedure Rules. Once it is presented, members will have the opportunity to debate the matter and then vote on it. But 15.13 of the Council Procedure Rules relating to points of order such as those raised by Councillor Khan set out the decision as to whether to proceed with that amendment, and the associated debate remains with the Chair. So I'll pass that to you, Chair.
Thank you very much for the question and also the advice you provided. In light of the advice from the monitoring officer, I have accepted the amendment and remains effective. So if we can move on to the motion 3. So the final motion we are considering this evening has been proposed by Councillor Bell and seconded by Councillor Khan. I now invite Councillor Bell to move the motion. You have up to 7 minutes, Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll just talk about what I've originally put down. So there's, as I say, there's a confusion and a lack of clarity on what the council can and can't do on HMOs, and many residents feel they have no say in the siting of HMOs. It's right that government policy sets mandatory minimum standards for space, safety and tenant well-being, and that landlords should meet these legal criteria enforced by local councils to secure the necessary HMO licenses. So while the government sets the national criteria, local councils have the flexibility to establish even stricter local guidelines for space and amenity standards. This council needs to look no further than our neighbouring council, Three Rivers, who in the last 6 weeks have introduced new rules enabling them to bring HMOs under planning control. I know it's going to take still more consultation there. As I'm sure most of us realise, these are known as Article 4 directives. This can tighten controls and regulations on the conversion of a property to an HMO and require planning permission. There has been a rise in HMOs across Watford. And I know particularly the concern in West Watford, obviously, which I represent, and many of the overdevelopment in our these local roads. So the Article 4 can give extra power and control as well as licensing. It's right that Watford should have the discretion to consider the impact of an over concentration of HMOs in a particular area, such as West Watford or maybe Central Colour and other parts of our town. It's right that this council looks to be able to make decisions and have some control on housing mix in an area and gives consideration and a voice to local residents over the changing character of their area. This council resolves that Watford Council look to review their policy on HMOs, as the planning team I know are doing, investigating after the Three Rivers decision, and that the council, through our shared offices and background, look to learn from the Three Rivers policy and decisions on this with a view to implement it in Watford after a full and detailed but urgent review. So I say I'm coming to this trying to be consensual in saying that I know that planning officers are reviewing what Three Rivers decided, and I'm really just encouraging you, obviously, to try and look at that, and hopefully in the end it does lead to a change. I know it takes time to the HMOs in the town. And I'm saying this really in the spirit of consensus, so that the leadership of the council gives a commitment to have a review of its HMO policy. And as I say, understanding the pressure of many of our residents feel about overdevelopment and the housing mix across the town. And I hope that you, in the end, accept that and look at that and come back to us with a change. And I know that will be many residents, not just in West Watford, but across the town. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. I'm going to now invite Councillor Carr to second the motion. You have up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to actually go for it. Right, so I'm pleased to second the motion. Let me begin by making one point particularly clear. This isn't a motion to attack people who live in HMOs. HMOs provide necessary low cost accommodation for many young people, key workers, single people, residents who can't afford self-contained home. There are also many responsible landlords who maintain good properties and treat their tenants properly. But recognising the need for HMOs doesn't mean that we should ignore the effect of an excessive concentration of them in particular roads and neighbourhoods. So from my own casework, I've seen spoken to residents who are confused and frustrated when they discover that a family home can become a small HMO without planning application, without neighbours having usually the usual opportunities to express their views. Licensing is important. It deals with safety, facilities, room sizes and welfare of tenants, but licensing and planning are not the same. Licensing doesn't properly address the cumulative effect of several HMOs in one area, additional parking pressure, inadequate refuse arrangements, noise, cost of family housing, and change to the balance and character of the neighbourhood. An Article 4 direction wouldn't ban HMOs. It would simply mean the proposed conversion from a family home to a small HMO requires planning permission and could be assessed on its merits. I've considered the amendments carefully. Much of it is on the background is reasonable. Of course, any Article 4 direction must be evidence-led, proportionate and legally robust. The original motion also called for a full and detailed review, while emphasising that it should be undertaken urgently. What the amendment does, however, is delete the clear commitment and replace it with another task and finish process. It duplicates research that the amendment itself acknowledges, officers have already begun, adds another stage and ultimately reports to Cabinet. Most significantly removes the words with a view to implementing Watford. That changes the motion calling for a purposeful and urgent action into which adds further discussion and delay. The reference to the government's national scheme of education is also a distraction. The new rules concern who determines a particular planning application. They don't change the fundamental purpose. An Article 4 direction requires planning permission where none is currently required. The delegation rules are due to come into force on the end of October of this year. Three Rivers is already taking this issue forward and developing the evidence for its proposed direction. Watford should learn from that work rather than placing another unnecessary hurdle in this way. Residents aren't demanding an automatic refusal for every HMO. They're asking for transparency, proper consideration and meaningful voice. I therefore urge councillors to reject these and support the clear, balanced and urgent approach contained in the original motion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Before I move any further with this meeting, I'm conscious of the time. I think we just passed 10 o'clock. Obviously, we've got the amendment and the debate. So the Constitution states that we have to finish the meeting by 10:30 unless we vote to extend it. So we've got obviously some part of the agenda remaining, so do members agree for the meeting to be extended beyond 10:30 by 30 minutes to enable us to finish the remainder of the items? Can I have, no?
No, it'll be finished by then.
By 10:30?
Even Spain's finished, France.
Okay, all right. Sorry, well, let's carry on then. So, amendment has been received. I understand it's to be moved by Councillor Glenn Saffrey and seconded by Councillor Pattinson. Councillor Saffrey, you have up to 7 minutes for your amendment.
Thank you. And it's a shame that the spirit of love and unity that was existing in some of the previous motions has dissipated, but there we go. We're moving this amendment because feelings mutual. We're moving this amendment because the reality of national community development legislation means Article 4 directions are not something that can be done at a stroke and should not be seen as a planning silver bullet. We recognise and share residents' sincere concerns about the potential impact on the character of our area because of this national policy. However, we would be irresponsible to the point of betraying them if we pretend to have an obvious and easy lever to pull. Article 4 directions can be altered or quashed if consultation and evidence underpinning the proposal is deemed insufficient by government ministers. That evidential bar is high. National legislation makes clear that Article 4 directions are not intended to be a general opt-out from permitted development rights, and that the direction should be applied to the smallest geographical area necessary. The Labour motion made no distinction on any of those matters, I should point out. The original motion mentions also our neighbours in Three Rivers, whose proposed Article 4 comes into effect in June 2027. They decided against an immediate implementation on the basis of financial risk, demonstrating the potential pitfalls for councils here. Now, I understand consideration of financial risk has never been something Labour have been overly burdened by, particularly in Watford, but it should be taken seriously. Watford council officers are already working on an evidence base to understand the extent of this issue here and the role of HMOs in our housing mix, which Councillor Khan did indeed allude to. Our amendment will support this ongoing work by creating a scrutiny task and finish group to consider the issue in the round. This work will ensure future decisions can be taken quickly on the basis of a robust evidence base. We think it is also important to make clear that the power to remove the impact of this national legislation and give local councils and thereby local residents a bigger say lies with Parliament. If Labour believes strongly that council should have the power to determine all conversions from dwelling houses to small HMOs, I, as well as many residents, may well be inclined to agree with them. They maybe should lobby their own government to make the necessary changes. I think we also needed to point out that the Labour government's forthcoming scheme of national delegation would mean even if permission were required for conversion from a dwelling house to a small HMO, it would be considered by officers only and never come before members of a planning committee, removing a layer of democratic oversight. I therefore move our amendment and very much hope colleagues will support our proposal to generate a robust body of evidence to support future decision making on this matter. Thank you.
Councillor Pattinson, I understand you're second, you have up to 5 minutes.
I am, and I'll probably just go through it now, and I won't take too long because I'm going to miss quite a lot of what I've said because it's already been said before. I think for me, HMOs can provoke really strong opinions, so I think it's important that as we have, when we approach this debate, the balance rather than generalisations. And we've got to recognise the wider context. The housing pressures facing Watford have never been greater, and despite repeated calls from councils across the country, the government has failed to make the local housing allowance reflect the real cost of renting. So the gap between benefit support and market rents has become so great that for a long time now there have been no privately rented homes advertised within the local authority allowance rates in Watford. So that leaves people with very few realistic options. So well-managed HMOs therefore form an important part of the wider housing picture, even though they're not the whole solution. But I do believe it's entirely reasonable that we review the evidence around planning controls, discuss and understand more from our neighbouring authorities and consider whether any Article 4 direction would help us achieve that right balance in Watford. And if there's an opportunity to give local communities a stronger voice over housing mix while maintaining access to affordable accommodation, then we should examine that carefully. But that decision must be evidence-led. And we should consider the needs of existing residents, future residents, landlords, businesses in the wider housing market. This shouldn't be about restricting HMOs, it's about creating the right homes in the right places to the right standards. And this reflects our values. I believe every resident, whether they own rent privately or rent socially or live in an HMO, deserve a decent home in the neighbourhood they're proud to call home. So I welcome the review proposal and in this amended motion and look forward to seeing the evidence so that together we can make the right decisions for Watford. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson, for your brevity. Thank you very much. Mr. Getz, Councillor Bell, I presume the amendment is not accepted.
Well, overall, I think after hearing what you've said, and in the end, we're going to get a review, and you are going to come back. It's at least a change from what we had before, so I'll accept it. We've got it on the table. I've got
Love and unity's back.
So now in light of Labour's acceptance of that, the amendment now becomes the substantive motion. So we devote the substantive motion with the amendment. Okay, so I'm going to turn to members. Who wish to speak? Councillor Shaw. Somebody else? I've got the Mayor and Councillor Shaw. Councillor Hill. 10:30, remember, colleagues.
You don't have to go to 10:30.
Okay, Councillor, Mayor Taylor.
Thank you. Very quickly to say that, thank you to Labour for agreeing to the amendment. I wasn't expecting that given Councillor Khan's comments. I was quite surprised by those comments, Councillor Khan. I think it's actually right that members are involved in this, that we look at the evidence. HMOs are an issue. I used to live in a HMO. I think there's lots of positives about them in terms of the social side of it. In fact, you can have good quality affordable housing that should be part of the mix. But we don't just want to look at Article 4 directions. There's a whole stream of issues to look at. I think it's totally right and proper that councillors should look at this issue in the round, decide on all the improvements that could be made, bring it back to Cabinet, and then we as a council can decide. So I'm glad that we seem to be getting back to unanimity on this issue.
I converted.
I'm pleased to hear that. And so I hope we can vote on this soon.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Sharp.
Yes, thank you. And I am conscious that we've a few members which just get on with this, but I think there's a couple points that I would particularly like to make regarding the amendment as to why that has been moved that I think are important. The motion as it stood was in effect assuming the conclusion in its premise. It was saying we should get on with doing this. What we need is an evidence base to justify doing it. And given the Secretary of State's potential power to not endorse this and to intervene, what we don't want to do is give the impression that we have assumed that we're going to do it and now we're going to find out the evidence to justify what we've already decided. Instead, we have to get the evidence and decide whether it supports the conclusion. That is very important for getting a robust conclusion, whatever it might be. The other thing is I dispute the question about urgency. What the amendment does is set up a mechanism for doing this. It does have to be decided by some forum, and the fact that we've said there will be a task and finish group and it will report to Cabinet who can take the decision. Actually, I would think as urgency rather than subtract urgency from it. The third thing I would say is that these are supposed to be evidence-based things that can justify by local circumstances, and I would be very wary, again, you would risk triggering intervention if we're saying we're only doing it because Three Rivers are doing it, because Three Rivers isn't Watford and we have to justify specific circumstances in Watford why it should be done. I think those are important things, not just as a critique of the Labour amendment, but as an endorsement of why we are doing this. We are doing this to see if there is evidence in Watford that might justify an intervention that would have a positive effect on our town. And as the Mayor and Councillor Safri know, I have been in discussion with this prior to even what Three Rivers have done. So I think it's important that we do take this forward and we have a way of taking that forward.
Thank you. Councillor Hill, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo what Mayor Taylor and Councillor Patterson already said about HMOs being part of the housing stock, but not necessarily at the expense of other types that exist within our community, and just say that I welcome the scrutiny that's been outlined in the amendment to the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Councillor Azafed.
Thank you, Chair. I wouldn't take up time is gone. I do think that bottom line, all of us are in agreement that there's need for review to establish the evidence and make the right decision. I think what we need to do is get on with it and set up the timeline.
Thank you, Councillor Azafed. Now, I think there's no other members going to talk, so we'll turn to Councillor Safari, as we propose the amended motion to sum up and wrap up the 3 minutes.
Thank you. No, I'm not going to take up any more of anybody's time, but I'm glad the motion will be unanimously supported.
Round of applause. Thank you very much. Let's move to the vote on the amended motion then. All those in favour, please shake hands. Anybody against? Any abstentions? That amended motion has been carried. Thank you very much. That's the end of the meeting. We've got it on. Sorry to talk about this rubbish.